problems that have been delaying our ability to be effective and efficient as a city. So with that, I'd like to start off by asking the Information Technology Department Head, Randy, if you could go ahead and bring us up to speed as succinctly as you can as to where we've been through this process, when did it start, how many people bid it, what was the finalist list, and then how you came up with your recommendation. And rather than go through the different scenarios of what the initial estimated costs were, what have you, let's talk about where we all are today, and then we can have the CLA and the CAO concur or not with your today's recommendations and your estimates as to the cost factors, the cost potential savings, etc. Okay? My time. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to start with my opening comments. Honorable council members, thank you for taking your valuable time and hopefully approve the Computer Science Corporation and Google contract for a new citywide email program. This is a challenging undertaking for all of us, and I want to thank you and your staff for your work, time, and patience you've put into understanding this solution that we are recommending to address the city's upcoming technology challenges. Speaking for my entire team, we know you all have been strenuously informed by numerous parties, and you have received all kinds of differing information, some of which is accurate and some of which could be potentially inaccurate. We also want to acknowledge the concerns that have been raised, and we believe we have addressed these. Some people might suggest to you that the CSC Google solution is new and untested technology. Actually, it has been tested, used for years in many forms, and endorsed by a number of major public sector institutions and private sector corporations. So it is more than a way of the future, it is actually a way of the present.
The vision we should be pursuing is one of how we use information to provide better, more reliable services. That's according to District 13 Council Member and Council President Eric Garcetti, who strongly supports the move to the cloud.
There's no question to me that we should be moving towards the cloud, whether that's Google, whether that's Microsoft, whether that's Novell in the future, whoever it is. I think we've had much that's in the cloud essentially because we're linked through the internet, and we also have a lot that we've had here. But long-term, part of what we've been hampered by, and I think the employees of ITA have done an extraordinary job with too few resources and too many systems, but we need to get that to a place that is more coherent. And though we're a big enterprise in the IT world, we're a very small one and can definitely leverage more of what we're doing. I have a number of questions about specifically some of the cloud issues and some of the things that were raised, and then I want to say a few things. First of all, have we ever been subject to denial of service attacks on the current service that we have right now for our email?
Yes, we have. I'm going to let Kevin Crawford, he's my AGM, answer that. Yes.
Denial of service attacks?
Yes.
Has that happened to us here?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So that's, I know, been a concern when people say May, for instance, Google went down. That was a concern. And Google, just to be clear, is not giving us separate servers. We're in their large tank. If Google goes down, we go down, right?
Yes, sir. Okay. That is correct.
But we've also gone down on our own because of those denial of service attacks, or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Not working.
And I think we covered, I think Mr. Cardenas covered, but this is not new money that we're going to be saving, but it's money that we budgeted that we need to save, that if we don't do this, we don't save. Is that correct? Is that maybe the CAO can speak to that? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Seeking clarification on actual costs, District 14 Council Member Jose Huizar asks for the source of the startup money, since the upgrade was not included in the current budget.
I heard this item in Budget and Finance, but I wanted just to clarify one thing on the cost, because in Budget and Finance, it was put more, the way it was phrased was more that it's going to cost us more. Today I keep hearing savings, so I wanted to just clarify that very basic issue, the cost. So for this coming fiscal year, this year, 09-10, it's going to cost us an additional $1.7 million, correct?
1.9.
1.9, okay. And that, how we're going to get that funding, despite it not being allocated in our budget, is explained in our report.
We recommend using the settlement, the Microsoft settlement dollars, and as well as taking in advance the rebate that Google's offering.
Yeah. And over 5 years, it's going to cost an additional $5 million?
Well, actually, within 5 years, there's a savings associated with this contract.
So there will be savings.
That's right. We're comparing the cost of this contract versus the cost of maintaining GroupWise for the next 5 years.
Okay, and
so the cost of Google on an annual basis is $17.5 million, and the cost of maintaining GroupWise is $22.9 million.
And joining us now is the Assistant General Manager of the Information and Technology Agency, Kevin Crawford. Mr. Crawford, welcome to Council Week in Review.
It's great to be here.
First of all, Information Technology Agency, what does it do for the city? What are its responsibilities?
The Information Technology Agency takes care of enterprise-level applications, the telephone system, the network, and backing up of those systems.
When you're talking about enterprise-level applications, what sort of things does that entail? Does that also involve installing programming and software and things like that?
Absolutely. Enterprise-level applications like the financial system, the backup system, email, and so on.
How important has email and the electronic communications become to city employees doing the city's business?
I think that email has now become more of a utility than it is a service that we provide anymore. It's absolutely required to do business in today's area.
Of course, there was a lot of conversation in council about the Google contract, email, and the cloud. Most of us know and use email, but people have been asking me ever since this came up before council, what is this cloud?
The cloud is actually the internet space that everybody uses today. What's different is that currently our email system sits inside servers that we run in our data centers here, whereas now what we're recommending is moving this to an internet system that is running, or a data system that is running in the internet. So it's somebody else's data center.
I know that some years ago, I think it was Sun Microsystems was talking about having a lot of applications running on its servers up in the Bay Area, that you would have just a bare bones computer with very little storage space on your desktop at home, and they would take care of all the internal guts. That sort of thing has kind of gone out of favor, though, amongst the internet community, hasn't it?
No, I don't think so. Some people might say that we're actually doing a full circle where we got back to the mainframe where you had a green screen plain terminal, but there are certain applications that we need to run in-house which have security requirements or other requirements that we need to be able to run directly. Unlike email, which has now become a utility where other companies are doing it much, much better than we ever could.
Obviously, the other huge question that has been bouncing around City Hall and your department is, how safe is this cloud enterprise system, and what, if anything, could possibly go wrong with the email system if it were to be migrated over to the cloud?
Well, obviously, we're never going to get to a point where we can say that anything is absolutely 100% safe. However, Google provides many more times the number of people that we have in ITA just to do security. So that is a key component of their business. They have to keep an eye on that absolutely every minute of every day. And so the security that we will be provided that way is going to be actually better than what we have today.
Of course, security comes in two forms. One is the impenetrability of the system so that your data is safe from intruders. And the other, obviously, is, will the data actually be there? Will the emails be preserved? Will the threads be able to be reassembled later? And I'm sure you've heard and read, as have the rest of us, about data systems and storage being dumped, being gone, and in some cases, I think a couple of weeks ago, with an entire internet phone system being unable to be retrieved in some cases.
The difference for this system is that what we have required in the contract is that Google will have a standard local data center that all of our data is in. It will also have all of our data replicated to two other data centers, so both a secondary and a tertiary backup, which will have a live failover. So if anything ever happened to the data center in the local area, it would immediately go to the secondary data center, and then if at that moment another tertiary one would be created, the tertiary would become second, and another one would be created. So we will always have 3 live copies out there of our data to have our staff have access to.
So basically, you're relying on defense in depth.
Absolutely.
Now, will the other Google applications be available to city employees, or is this particular enterprise just limited to the email?
No, we're actually going to be getting all kinds of other applications. E-discovery and archiving are very big for IT. We have no real disaster recovery for our email system today. Archiving gives us that. E-discovery gives us an ability to do searches of emails where we have to go to individual persons today and ask them to do their own searches. So both of those are very big. We also are going to be getting the Google Apps, which is a word processing, spreadsheet, and presentation tools. We also get video conferencing, IM, and some other smaller applications like storage in the cloud.
Obviously, getting back to this issue of security for the Google system, particularly when it comes to the police department, going forward with this information on the system, be safe in the sense that nobody else, even within the city family, could get into it. And if there were a breach of some kind, how would you propose that that be dealt with?
So the way the system has worked is that Google actually will have each piece of data, whether it be a file or an email, will be broken into smaller pieces of electronic data and then encrypted on different servers. So if anybody were able to get into a Google data center and got their hands on a server, they could take a server out there, but none of the data is going to be readable in any format. So one, you have to have an application that puts those pieces together, and then secondarily, you have to have the encryption key to unencrypt it. So we consider that to be very, very secure. But we've also written into the contract that it is absolutely ironclad and clear that all of the data that the city provides, no matter in what form, belongs to the city and no one else has rights to it. If for some unknown reason a piece of our data does get out through somewhere, we actually have breach of contract language in that for disclosure of that confidentiality.
You probably know that both NASA computers and the Pentagon computer systems have been breached, and there's been some suspicion that perhaps Chinese nationals or maybe even the Chinese Army has been involved in that. There are people all over the world who are trying to hack into systems just like this, and occasionally we hear they succeed.
The big difference for Google is that Google does use a commercially available firewall, high-end, very good, very well managed. The difference here, though, is that Google actually manufactures its own hardware. So they don't go out and buy an IBM or a Dell or a HP server, which the normal hackers would have access to the languages that run on those. Google has proprietary hardware and a proprietary language that runs on that. So even if by some chance they were able to get through a firewall, they would not be able to read anything on the servers because they do not have the languages to do that.
This isn't something that happened overnight, obviously. How thoroughly has this been researched? How many other companies have been looked at? And bottom line, will LA actually see any cost savings by going to this Google service?
Well, it's been going on for a year now. I arrived in LA on the 1st of October, and we started this project the first week of November. So we did a proof of concept for 6 weeks, proving which way we should go, how we should look at for the email system. We wrote the RFP. The RFP was answered in April. We made a recommendation in May, and we've been working on the contract since.
RFP, of course, is request for proposals.
Yes.
Did most of the biggies in the industry actually respond to the RFP? Did you hear from pretty much everybody, you know, the Microsoft and the other companies?
We received 15 proposals, and every major producer of an email system did respond.
Oh, good. When will the system be in place? Who will be the first to use it? And then what about the changeover time? How's that going to work out?
One piece of question that I didn't answer from your former question was how much money will this make. The contract actually does cost money the first year to get it implemented because we have to run 2 email systems side by side to make sure that the new email system works to the company standard. So after that, we expect to save approximately about $1.4 million a year, but the overall 5-year contract will save $5.5 million for the city.
People who will actually be using this email, or is it the Gmail system, what will they be seeing in terms of what they have to do at their office desktops?
The difference will be is you won't have a client on your desktop like you do today, where you sign into GroupWise and it gives you your email and everything else. It's going to look virtually the same, but you're going to run it through an internet browser, and you will get that data like you would Hotmail or Yahoo or Gmail at your home.
Assistant General Manager of the Information Technology Agency, Kevin Crawford, thanks for joining us on Council Week in Review.
Thank you very much.
And continuing our conversation about the Google Cloud, and joining us by phone now is the chair of the Information Technology and Government Affairs Committee, District 6 Councilmember Tony Cardenas. Mr. Cardenas, thanks for joining us on Council Week in Review.
Pleasure to be with you, Jack.
We just spoke with the Assistant General Manager of ITA, Kevin Crawford, who explained what cloud computing is. A question for you, and one that some of your colleagues, of course, asked, will going with Google really save the city that money?
Yes, Google's going to save city money in a way that's not easy to calculate, and that is a lot of the savings comes with efficiency and the lack of frustration that we're going to have in the future, of the frustration that people have today with our old system that's outdated and held together very loosely. So the Google system is actually cloud computing, which means that Google is going to be responsible for the storage of all the data, for the maintenance of all those kinds of things, and when you get right down to it, we're going to be able to look back and realize that we saved a lot of time and a lot of money, and saved with a lot of personnel costs as well.
Of course, it's been noted that Los Angeles will be the largest city to use Google to manage its email. Should we have waited to see results from some of the smaller cities and businesses first?
Well, this is computing, but it really isn't rocket science. Cloud computing has been around for a while now. The actual concept of cloud computing is pretty straightforward, and the fact of the matter is Google is definitely big enough and strong enough and fortified enough to have all the technical and all the hardware capabilities to handle a city like ours. Google does, in fact, have large organizations that have tens of thousands of users on their Google system. So they have proven that the size of the city of Los Angeles usage is actually matched by other organizations that are doing just fine.
Obviously, several of your colleagues expressed concern about the security of a lot of sensitive documents being stored on the cloud. Do you have any concerns, and what happens when and if there is a breach?
Actually, I was one of the ones that brought up those security concerns a few months ago, but since then they've actually addressed those concerns, and I'm glad they've done that. They've worked with the California Department of Justice to make sure that anybody who's at Google who has any access to that particular data is going to have the proper governmental clearance when it comes to security. So those are some of the aspects of security, and also we are also aware of, which is part of the contract, this isn't just people making promises, but it's part of the contract, is that we will have that kind of security and a system that they will be backing up and making sure that we don't lose information, which is also a security concern as well. Today, our current system, some of our actual facilities, our servers, as they're called, where we store all this data and it's being processed and held for us for future use, some of it is actually behind a chain lock fence, and that is not safe. But Google has a state-of-the-art cloud computing system where we're going to move away from the loose, unfortunately, very loose system that we have today.
Presumably Microsoft and places like the Pentagon and NASA have been tremendously diligent about their security, and yet their systems have been hacked into, all three of them, within the past year.
Yes, when people talk about security, because we're dealing with human beings and we're dealing with dynamics that are far beyond any person's control, the bottom line is when we deal with security, what we have to do and what we've done here is make sure that we have as many of those requirements in the contract clearly delineated. But I will tell you this, there is no such thing as guaranteed security, even with the Pentagon. So we're going to make it as tight as possible. We're making sure that we're protected as much as humanly possible. But the fact of the matter is, anybody who says that they can have any computer system that is 100% foolproof and guaranteed, well, that person or that organization is going to be the richest organization in the world, because no organization or no government has been able to do that completely secured, 100% guaranteed.
Yeah, I guess it's literally true. Anything that has a wire plugged into the back of the mini tower, you're vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Or anything that has access to human beings. I mean, with all due respect, when you're talking about hacking isn't done by computers. Hacking is done with computers, but by unscrupulous human beings. So, unfortunately, those elements will always be out there. But Google is on the cutting edge of making sure that they are making their system as secure as humanly possible today. And that's what the big difference is, Jack. The thing is, we have a system that's old, we have a system that's inefficient, we have a system that everybody in the city is complaining about, and the fact of the matter is cloud computing is the way to go today, and it actually is the way to go for the future.
Of course, this was not a decision that was exclusively made by your committee and the ITA. Were other departments involved in putting together this deal?
Well, actually, the fire department had a big say-so because of security issues. The LAPD, that department had a big say-so. Many tremendous questions that were overcome and satisfied. And with that, there was a lot going on, a lot of dialogue, a lot of understanding to make sure if and when we move on a new system, we are going to make it bigger and better and more efficient. So today, we're extremely comfortable with the decision we've made. It was actually a unanimous vote of the council, and the council had about an hour and a half, 2 hours of deliberation after hours of deliberation in committee. So what we've been able to do is satisfy a lot of the concerns, put those concerns to rest by making sure that the contract is ironclad solid to address all of those concerns, and that's where we're at today.
And finally, there was a lot of talk of video teleconferencing. Will, for example, neighborhood councils perhaps be using this system? And for that matter, will a lot of city employees be able to maybe work from home?
Yes, exactly, and that's one of the things about today and into the future. We're talking about efficiencies. Any city, any community, any company that says go green, they got to make sure that where the people can actually reduce their travel and make sure they can still get their work done. That's something that's positive. And actually, in my opinion, the community is demanding. The community of, Los Angeles, the community of California, and throughout the country and the world. Everybody wants to be greener. Everybody wants to be cleaner. And you're absolutely right. It's going to give greater opportunity for people to work where they're at, reducing the amount of travel, and creating much more efficiency as well.
District 6 Councilmember Tony Cardenas, thanks for joining us on Council Week in Review.
Thank you, Jack.
And again, I'd like to thank our guests, Assistant General Manager of the Information Technology Agency, Kevin Crawford, and District 6 Councilmember Tony Cardenas. The vote to approve the Google contract was unanimous. Item 12 on Friday was unanimously approved by your Los Angeles City Council. The Council accepted the agreement with the Coalition of Los Angeles Unions, which will allow approximately 2,400 city employees to take early retirement and avoid layoffs, further furloughs, and help the city out of its current budget crisis. LA City View is the government access cable channel for the City of Los Angeles, featuring live coverage of City Council meetings and programming about City Department services and events. Now, if you have suggestions or comments about any of the programs you see here on Channel 35, call our viewer hotline at 213-473-3978. Our viewer guide is now available too online at lacity.org. And remember, you can watch all Los Angeles City Council meetings live in their entirety on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays beginning at 10 a.m. On Sundays, you can watch the replay of all the week's meetings, also beginning at 10 a.m. Council Week in Review can be seen Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m., and on Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Well, that concludes our program for the week ending October 30th, 2009. On behalf of Michael Flynn and everyone here at Channel 35, I'm Jack Popejoy. Thank you for watching, and please join us for the next Council Week in Review.
You think it can't happen to someone like you? Are you crazy? It could happen to anyone.
No one can save your life, nor the life of someone you love.
Hey, it's free. It's painless and easy. Don't be scared. Just get tested.
Know for sure. Get an HIV test now.
LA City View Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
Mr. Rosendahl? Mr. Reyes? No, Mr. Reyes is sick. Good morning. We are waiting for the quorum. We are waiting for the arrival of additional members to begin our council meeting. We are lacking a quorum at this time. We want to thank Mr. Alicon, Mr. Cardenas, Mr. Labange, Mr. Parks, Mr. Smith, Mr. Wesson, and Mr. Zine. We are awaiting the arrival of our colleagues, Mr. Weezar, Mr. Rosendahl, and Ms. Hansen committee meeting. When we get to 10, we can begin our council meeting. Were there any other announcements or presentations? Mr. Labange, any announcements or presentations? All right, we're going to hold until we get our quorum. Mr. Labange?
Yeah, they'll be down from committee right away.
All right, as soon as they get here. It's 10:20, and we're ready to begin as soon as they get here. So we go on standby for now. Thank you, Ms. Hahn. We're at 8 members. We need 2 more to begin our meeting. Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. We are at 9 members. We need 1 more to begin our meeting. Okay, 2 others will be here shortly, and then we'll begin our meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Weezar, thank you. We now have our 10 members. Thank you, Mr. Weezar. Okay, we are now going to start our session as City Council for Wednesday, November 4th.
So you know we were waiting for the appeals to go through, and now we have...
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Han, Weezar, Carets, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Westenstein, Garcetti. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. By way of introduction, welcome to City Hall, City Council Chambers, meeting of the Los Angeles City Council for Wednesday, November 4th. We meet 3 times a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I'll remind our viewers that this Friday we'll be in Van Nuys. Our meeting will be at the Van Nuys City Hall as we do the first Friday of the month. All meetings are open to the public. Those who cannot make the City Hall, we are televised via cable, Channel 35. Also be viewed on the website, lacity.org, or council phone 213-621-CITY. We now have a roll call. First item of business, Madam Clerk.
Approval of the minutes.
Councilmember Councilmember Rosendahl, and Councilmember Smith, seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Councilmember Labange, Councilmember Weezar, seconds.
Mr. President, before beginning the regular agenda, there's a request to continue 2 of the items. Items 19 and 49, both a request to continue those matters to Friday, November 6th.
Without opposition, those matters will be continued.
First items on the agenda are items noticed for public hearings. Items 1, 2, and 3 are street lighting district matters, and the recommendation for council action is to open the hearing and continue the hearing and ordinances to November 24th.
Items
1, 2, and 3.
No cards on those items?
No.
No questions on those items? Continue those items.
The next group of items are also public hearing items. They're building and safety items, and the department has advised that on items 6 and 8, 9, and 10, those matters can be received and filed inasmuch as the liens have been paid, and on item number 6, there is a change in ownership on that.
And on the change of ownership, what do they wish?
Yeah, and that one can be received and filed.
Received.
That's item number 6, and then 8, 9, and 10.
Very well.
And then also in that group are building and safety items 4, 5, and 7. The department has advised that those matters can go forward for confirmation. And on item number 5, the amount of the lien, a partial payment was made, and the new amount of the lien is $553.35 on that one.
Without opposition?
Council can take a vote on those on 4, 5, and 7 if they wish.
On the items, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next items, please.
Next items are items for which public hearings have been held, items 11 through 46. Items 11, 12, and 13 are confirmations. Do you wish to hold those on the desk?
Please hold those.
Then that would leave before council 14 through 46, and committee reports have been distributed on item 46, and 39 and 40 were in committee this morning, and those have not been distributed as yet. You wish to hold those on the desk?
Hold those items. And number 28, we want to call special, and 45, call special. 28 and 45, please.
And
for Mr.
also,
Garcetti.
on item 46, there are 2 reports on that, and I believe the recommendation is to adopt the ITGA report, although do you wish to hold that on the desk?
Please hold that. On the remaining items, any specials on the items called? Mr. Parks?
That's special on 31 and 46.
31 and 46 special. Any cards, Madam Clerk?
Those have already had public hearings.
Very well. Any other specials, colleagues? Mr. Weezar?
I have a previous one that's not on the, oh yes it is, 20 and 23 please.
20 and 23 special, Mr. Weezar? Any other specials? No other specials? On the remaining matters, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Mr. Smith?
Ask number 37 go forthwith.
37 forthwith. Mr. Parks?
And 14 forthwith.
14 forthwith, thank you.
I'm sorry, that's an ordinance, so that will go over for 1 week, or actually over till November 17th.
On
because
Mr. Parks'
council's in
item?
recess.
Madam Clerk, Mr. Parks' item, or Mr. Smith?
That's on Mr. Parks' item.
Mr. Parks. It'll go over for a week for an ordinance. Next item, please.
Next items are items for which public hearings have not been held. Items 47 through 51, 10 votes are required for consideration.
We have cards on those?
Yes, there are cards on 47 and 48. There's a request to receive and file that one, although there is a card on that, and council should hear the card first before it's received and filed.
Hold those matters with the cards. And Mr. Labange, 47? Special for Mr. Labange on 47?
And actually, that's that entire section has cards, and then 49 was already acted on. And then the next group of items are the closed session items 52 through 60. Do you wish to hold those on the desk?
Yes.
And
Please
then that
hold.
would take council back to the items called special and also public comment.
Mr. Parks.
Mr. President, on item 52 has come before the council a number of times, and this is a second request to reject an offer. So if there's no questions, we can move that on open session.
On number 52?
Yes.
And that's a recommendation to adopt the city attorney's recommendation.
Okay, without objection from colleagues, that's the order.
Yes, council
Open
should
the roll
vote
on
on it.
that. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Very well.
And do you wish to take up public comment at this time?
Let's do the commissioners first. How many commissioners do we have?
You have 4 commissioners. On the first group, items 11, 12, and 13 are all confirmations to the Quality and Productivity Commission, and audits waived consideration of those matters inasmuch as the committee meeting was canceled, so those matters are now before council.
I'd like to do the commissioners first.
Okay, that would, do you want to do you wish to do 11, 12, and 13 then together? Those are the same commission, and then item 47 is confirmation to the Rec and Park Commission.
Very well. Let's do those at 11, 12, and 13.
Okay. And that's Mr. Diaz, Mr. Lee, and Ms. Flowers.
If you can please come forward. We have one more. Please come to the table. Do we have one more commissioner, Madam Clerk? I see 2 at the table.
I'm sorry, that's Mr. and Mr. Diaz.
Mr. Diaz? Mr. Diaz in chambers? Is that number 11, 12, or 13?
We've been advised that Mr. Diaz may not be in council, so that would be Mr. Lee and Ms. Flowers are here.
Well, then we will hold on Mr. Diaz, and we have the other 2 commissioners. All right, Mr. Labange.
I just say, members, these are 2 great people who are going to contribute to this commission. I could speak greater of Carolyn Flowers, who's the #1 person in the #2 position at MTA, in charge of all operations. She's a resident of the 4th District, a great graduate from UCLA, and she knows about productivity, she knows about governance, and she will contribute greatly. Mr. Lee also is very focused in his determination to help with this commission, accepting this role on behalf of the mayor to make Los Angeles a better and more efficient place. I strongly recommend both. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Comments from our prospective commissioners. Ma'am?
I've served on the commission for the past 4 years, and being part of the city structure and committed to improvements in the city processes is part of what I would like to support, and I would like to continue in that role. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lee?
Yes, I come from private industry, and I have a background in quality. I feel that my formal training and my certifications in the quality industry will be able to serve the commission well in making the city of LA a better place to work and for the various departments within the city.
Thank you. And with the economic times facing us, it's going to be very important to maintain quality and productivity with our city workforce as the dollars are stretched farther and farther and the workforce is reduced. So you have challenges before you. Any other comments, colleagues, on these two commissioners? Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Very well.
Excuse me, 10 ayes.
10 ayes. Well, it's not that anyone's voting against you. We only have 10 people present. Mr. Labange?
On this, I thank you, and thank you for your service to Los Angeles. And could you pull up all commissioners now, Mr. President?
Pardon me, Mr. Labange?
Could you call for all commissioners who are on the agenda today?
We're going to do that. We're going to move the commissioners first before the public comment. Thank you. So thank you. You've been confirmed, and congratulations.
And, Mr. President, there is one more commissioner on item number 47, and that's to the Rec and Park Commission, and that's Mr. Jerome Stanley.
And on the other commissioner that's not here, Mr. Diaz, why don't we hold that? And
if council wishes, you could adopt that or confirm, make the confirmation, and then he would be sworn in at a later time.
well, I think we should interview before we do that, so I'd like to hold it.
Okay.
Just continue that matter.
That would be continued then to Friday. Friday is the last day, and that is in Van Nuys.
Very well. Okay, the mayor's office will follow up on that. Thank you. Okay, we now have our Recs and Parks Commissioner, Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much, members. Jerome Stanley is another great nominee from Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa to serve on Recreation and Parks Commission. I'm just going to ask him to express his passion in service and understanding of all young people. We've known each other over 30 years. And Jerome, please.
Very much.
If you could pull the microphone just a little closer.
Thank you very much. As a native of Los Angeles, I grew up playing baseball in Dinker Park. And my whole youth was spent in and around Los Angeles city parks, and they were a very important part of my development. One of the things that I see now, now that I live out in the valley, I see a wonderfully run park called Balboa Park. And I would hope that all the other parks in the city can be brought up to that level. My intention is to reach out to some of the council members, maybe Mr. Cardenas and some of the people who have done some of the gang work, and try to see if there's a synergy that we can bring to it, maybe with the mayor's office and some of the work that they've done to try to add value so that we can move an agenda to help some of the young people that are out there and see the schools and the parks as their only safe havens.
Our nominee here has a great mentorship with Judge Terry Hatter, who was a great federal judge as well. He's a graduate of USC, and I think it'd be a great addition to the Board of Recreation and Parks Commission. I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Mr. Cardenas.
Yes, Mr. Stanley, you said that you grew up playing baseball in public parks.
I did.
But do you have any involvement relative to sports now as an adult in your professional life?
I do. I have worked in the area of professional athlete representation. I'm a sports attorney for the past 22 years, working with a number of high-profile NFL and NBA players. And that's another thing that I would like to do, is to try to see if I can work toward bringing parks and recs to some of the sports icons that we know about, whether it's an organization like the Lakers or an NFL, or whether it's a network like an ESPN or Fox, or whether it's an individual like a Baron Davis or Gilbert Arenas, or some of these people that are from the area that have played at these parks that I don't think are fully integrated back into them. That's something, a challenge that I would like to take on if given the opportunity to serve the city in this capacity.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your service and your volunteerism. You volunteered on the Airport Commission in the past, and we've worked together. But one of the things that I want to ask of you is that perhaps you could work with me. Maybe we can start the process and begin to develop and put into place perhaps a gathering of our young people, especially those young people who dream and want to be professional, athletes. And the perspective you bring is very important. It's the business side of it. Sure. It's the reality of it. of that it's not all glitz and glamour. And perhaps with your contacts and then us putting together an event on one of our facilities, maybe right here in the chambers, where we can have a dialogue with those young people so they can continue to be inspired, but at the same time get a dose of the realistic answers from the men and women who've actually gone through that and have made it or have done it in the past and decided to do other things with their lives, and to share with them the importance of going to school, to share with them the importance of doing the right thing and staying out of trouble and things of that nature. Because isn't that part of the key to increasing someone's chance of success?
Absolutely. And I would be honored to work with you, Councilman. I believe that it's an asset that we can use, that we can leverage to reach young people. There's one thing about young people is they are active. They do like to play. And, you know, if we can use this as an outlet, as a competing force to some of the negative things that they have out there, I think that we can make a difference in the lives of many of the kids that don't have those wide arrays of opportunities. And again, I would be honored to work with you to help you continue some of the work that you've already done in this regard.
Okay. Thank you. I look forward to working with you, and I think we're going to be able to pull this together. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning.
Good morning to you, sir.
Thanks for stepping up to the plate and getting on that board. I got a couple of quick questions, okay?
Sure.
One of the concerns I have is we opened up a skateboard park on October 3rd on Venice Beach.
Yes.
It is the most popular skateboard park because it's Venice Beach. They're coming from all over the world.
Yes.
I am going to enforce our law December 1st that you must have a helmet.
Yes.
You must have knee pads and you must have elbow pads.
Yes.
Okay? We're going to be working with the VSA, the Venice Skateboard Association, some of the old guys from the Z Group that created the skateboard world that we're living in today. And they were all there when we cut the ribbon and opened up the park. The mayor showed up, all kinds of other people. I need help from the board. I need help on the following levels. Number one, I'd like to find a donor that can purchase those knee pads, those elbow pads, and those helmets. So we can have a rack that the VSA can have. So when a kid comes to enjoy that wonderful skateboard park, he will be encouraged to put on the gear.
Sure.
Because I don't want to see anybody hurt.
Sure.
Okay? It's a macho thing not to wear the gear, but if the guys in their 40s and 50s, the original ones, say, hey man, you got to wear it, and da-da-da-da, here it is, put it on. That is my goal.
Sure. I think that some of the manufacturers, given an opportunity to work with the city of Los Angeles, would find that something desirable to do and to come in and partner with us. Once we are able to inventory some of the things that working with us allows them to benefit from. And it's something that I would be happy to take back to the board and talk about.
I would love that. Barry Sanders is on board. Everybody is happy about it. Let's get some potential and even naming rights, or maybe somebody who can have a signature helmet. My God, it's Venice Beach. We on cover of all the magazines around the planet, that kind of thing. I don't want to see anybody hurt. And I want to enforce the law by December 1st. Okay?
I understand.
So whatever you can do to help us with that, I'll be most grateful for.
I will. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and appreciate your public service. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. The matter is now before us for the vote. Open the roll. Oh, I'm sorry. There's cards. Thank you. There's cards. Thank you. I forgot about the cards. Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams.
Dr. Clyde Williams, 4115 Barrett Road, El Sereno, Northeast LA. We got a new park, I hope, over in Northeast LA called Elephant Hill, because you guys bought it yesterday. I hope we get it built. We still have Ascot. However, as a commissioner of the Parks and Recs and Park, one of the things I've been interested in is the auditing of all of the leases that Recs and Park controls, specifically the Autry National Center, which has a lease agreement with the City of Los Angeles, of which the conditions, terms, have never been complied with. Look at the file, it's virtually empty. There's a whole bunch of things in that file that relate to other things, but nothing that relates to the lease conditions and terms for the Autry. Is this just one example? I doubt it. I think there are many other leases which are in default, perhaps. Quimby funds, another element for the Commissioner of Rexon Park. Quimby funds are being held by the Department of Finance primarily to generate interest. Why? Because that goes directly into the budget. So Quimby funds are being withheld from the people of the city of Los Angeles. We need parks. We understand that operations and maintenance of capital investments also has to be there. So when you have Quimby funds, you need to get them invested, but along with that, you need to have the money to operate and maintain. This is something that the Commission for Rexon Park needs to explore. Quimby funds and the leases. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Our next speaker on this matter is Arnold Sachs. Arnold Sachs.
Good morning, sir. Thank you. Arnold Sachs. I don't know if you were familiar with this article that appeared in the Downtown News from October 5th, and it described little progress in parks program 2 years after the issue garners attention. Not one new Quimby park has been created. So I'm a little concerned about the Quimby fees. The Parks and Recreation Planning Development Division spent a little over $500,000 on a study, but they don't have the money to come up with $600,000 to follow through with a master plan. So you have funds sitting around, and the way things are allocated by the city council and legislation in general is we get the funds, but they are narrowly defined for what their uses can be. So the funds are sitting there. $130 million. 2 years ago this month, the City Department of Recreation and Parks revealed that it had accumulated more than $130 million in park funds. But it can only be used for buying. It's not used for maintenance. It's not used for upkeep. It's not used for personnel. So you have this money that can't be used. And it's like having a 6-foot ladder when you need to reach a 10-foot ceiling. Any ideas of how the city always acting in benefit of the public, but they create these roadblocks to use the money for a functional use, unless, of course, it's a deep pocket project, and then they vest interest in for the deep pockets. Any idea how you can move, or what you think you can do to have some of this funding become available so the public actually gets some use out of the money that's been collected? Thank you.
Our next speaker on this matter is Matt Dowd.
All right, thank you. Congratulations, Jerome. Hopefully we'll be talking a lot soon because you guys run a permit program at Venice Beach, Department of Parks and Rec, and you've got program rules. Here's my original permit. This is a lifetime permit from 2006 that I paid for. Lifetime. But now they made us get a new one. This is the 2009 model. There's problems with the current ordinance out there, but here's the bigger problem, and I need you to look into this. I'll give you the list. I'm fucking hand this over. There's a case right now in federal court, and we're in the Ninth Circuit. We went to mediation, Michael Hunt and myself, over the whole vending ordinances. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal mediator, a very nice lady, she said, why don't you just take the agreement that the court awarded? The court awarded $471,000 to us against the city. Now that's the judgment. And we wanted more than that to settle because we've been through hell, and the city wanted to offer us something less. So the court, and I want you to hear this, the court said, take what's on the table, everybody, and walk away so that we don't have to deal with this anymore. And you've put the money into the courthouse. But guess what happened? See, we wanted $900,000 to settle, not $471. But we came back with a little over $500 and said, okay, we'll walk away, $500. The attorney's getting $250 or $300 of that. It was ridiculous. So we put it to the Ninth Circuit. that we would walk away with that and accept the court's decision. And your guy, Mike Claysons, or whoever you've got, your civil attorneys, said we'll give Hunt and Dowd 25% of the court award. And I'm telling you, the Ninth Circuit mediator, she fell off her chair and you insulted her so badly. No wonder the Biggie Smalls case has
Mr. Walsh,
settled.
is John Walsh our next speaker on this matter? John Walsh.
I hope when you're in there you don't crucify people like him. I hope when you're in there you don't spit in the face of the federal mediator who says give them the money that they won when Judge Pragerson voted. I'd just like to point out HollywoodHighlands.org for more information, and also Lamplight.org for every single council person up here, their money, a complete profile of their campaign contributions at Hollywood, at
Mr. President, he's not talking about this appointment.
Well,
Mr. Walsh, please stay on target, and the target is this commissioner.
I'd like to finish by saying I'd invite you to come out, sir, to Hollywood and look at Selma Park is the least used park in the United States. It's empty except for drug dealing. Come on out to my neighborhood. That's Eric Garcetti's park. HollywoodHighlands.org, where I'm not rudely interrupted. You know I am. Thank you. Bye. 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. The matter is now before us for a vote. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Very well. Congratulations, and thank you, Commissioner. Forthwith to the Commission. With a request for number 20 from Mr. Weezar. We have one card on that matter. Mr. Weezar, number 20.
Thank you, Mr. President. If we could take the card first, please, and then I'll make...
Mr. Weezar, there was a public hearing on this. Would you wish this to be heard?
Yes, we could
Reopen,
hear it now.
reopen the public hearing?
Yeah, open the public hearing, please.
On reopening the public hearing, any opposition? Hearing no opposition, open the roll. Close the roll, tabulate the vote. Public hearing.
11 ayes.
Public hearing's reopened. Blanca Duenas? Duenas. Blanca Duenas.
I think we may need a translator. Translator, please.
Ma'am, please proceed. Ma'am? Pardon me? Needs a translator? We need a translator on this matter? Thank you.
Buenos días. Buenos días a todos los concejales. Good morning to all the council members. Mi nombre es Blanca Dueñas y vengo de Boyle Heights. My name is Blanca Dueñas and I come from Boyle Heights. Y soy miembro de una organización que se llama La Lucha del Pueblo. I'm member of an organization called Lucha del Pueblo. Y ahí tenemos dos ramas que son Familias Unidas y Estudiantes Unidos y trabajamos duro en las escuelas. We have two branches also with Students United and we work very hard with the schools. Por eso yo apoyo el plan del uniforme escolar. That's what I support, the plan of the school uniform. Porque el uniforme personaliza a nuestros estudiantes mentalmente. The uniform personalizes our students. Y al ponerse el uniforme, el mensaje que ellos están recibiendo es que es la escuela y el aprender y su meta que sea la universidad. When they wear the uniform, they indicate, they kind of show what school they go and that they have a goal. The goal is to learn and to go to the university. Además, el uniforme nos puede ayudar también a la prevención. The uniform can help us to prevent. Porque estos muchachos salen de la escuela y se ven todos uniformados y no permiten que otros muchachos se paren con ellos a reclutarlos para las gangas.
The uniform prevents from them to join gangs because when they get out of school, wearing the uniform, you can identify that they are the students, and if somebody else that doesn't wear the uniform meets them, you can see that maybe they are gangs trying to get in touch with them.
En mi experiencia, mis dos hijas van a la high school y van uniformadas.
My two daughters go to high school and they wear uniform.
Y me he dado cuenta que eso les da más confianza para aprender y para sentirse seguras que ellas son unas estudiantes.
And I've been able to see that they feel more comfortable and that they can see that they are students and they are willing to learn.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Weezer.
Thank you, Mr. President. And first, I want to thank the speaker who came out to speak on this item. Colleagues, what's before you is a resolution by the City of Los Angeles to recommend to the Los Angeles Unified School District that they adopt a policy for all schools to wear uniforms. Uniforms are currently used at many large school districts throughout the country, including Washington, D.C., Long Beach, New York City, and Philadelphia. And these school districts have found that when uniforms are used at those schools, there's more focus on academics, there's more order in the schools, and it also helps raising student achievement overall. You know, some may ask as well, what about those students who may not be able to afford uniforms? Most of these school districts have help from the private sector. The private sector pitches in to allow these students to purchase 1 or 2 uniforms a week, be able to wash them and use them throughout the week. What's more importantly is in those schools where we have seen gang activity has lessened or has been non-existent after school uniforms have been implemented. This is an issue of safety and of raising student achievement for all students. I served on the school board for about 4 years, and I certainly witnessed those schools with uniforms had higher student achievement and also seemed more orderly and focused on the purpose of learning at school. I hope we could support this motion, ask the school district to adopt a uniform policy for all our schools to allow our students to focus on what's important, and that is learning in the classroom. I wanted to take this time to invite up Captain Philip Tingeridis. Are you here? Tingeridis. Sorry about that. How was that? Tingeridis. Thank you. And if the clerk could hold my time as I ask the captain to share your experience with the work you have done at Markham Middle School once uniforms were adopted at that school. Thank you. Please hold my time.
Absolutely. Good morning. Last year, working with the City Attorney's Office, Southeast area, put together a team of officers and people from the City Attorney's Office and other community members who worked very hard at Markham Middle School. And one of the arms of that was school uniforms. And some of the things that we found with the uniforms, especially in Southeast area, that's Markham Middle School is fed by 3 different housing developments. 3 different gangs involved or come out of those developments. And last night I heard Chief Beck talk about our department, and one of the primary missions that we have is getting kids to school safely and home safely. Uniforms not only help with on campus, but they also help dramatically with getting kids back and forth safely, because in areas like Southeast where there are gangs everywhere and they're identified by colors of clothing, it takes that aspect out. It takes away that in-your-face, I'm from this gang. So getting back and forth to school is a huge asset for the uniforms. Once they're on school grounds, it takes away some of those social issues. If I have better clothes, it takes away the gang colors during school, and it certainly makes it look like everybody is there for the same reason, because of just the appearance. And so my experience specifically with Markham is that school uniforms are a huge asset to public safety, student safety, and makes things easier for the school and the police department.
Well, thank you very much, Captain, for your work that you've done at Markham. We've seen dramatic improvement at Markham, and we know that implementing a uniform policy for all the students was one aspect of many others of the changes that occurred at that school. But thank you so much for your work there. And certainly, as we have seen, those schools that do use uniforms, you have a focus on what's important, and that is learning. And it seems to get lost sometimes because, as you said, sometimes students tend to focus on what one is wearing, not the other, whether one can afford the look of the year or not, and this takes all that away to make sure we focus on learning in the classroom. So thank you for your work. And currently, colleagues, at the school district, the district has a policy to leave it up to each individual school to decide on their own. Some schools have opted to go on a uniform policy, some have not. I would hope that if the school district does not go to a uniform policy for all schools, that they at least send information to all the schools, and particularly the parents who can make a movement and organize other parents to make uniforms available at that school, that they send them the information and the data that shows that those schools with uniforms are doing much better academically, so that those schools could at least decide for themselves and have the data available to them. Thank you. I would ask for your support on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We now have Mr. Cardenas, Ms. Hahn, and Mr. Labange.
Thank you, Mr. President. I support this concept and I support this motion, yet this resolution. Yet at the same time, Councilmember Huizar, what I would like to make sure that we do is that we make sure that that information that you just mentioned, that school districts that have a uniform policy district-wide, that has in fact had a positive impact on the children's focus, bettering their scores, things of that nature. But with all due respect, I have found by asking the tertiary questions that sometimes that information seems to be anecdotal. I hope that you're right. I expect that you're right. It makes sense. I'll give you a case in point. Sometime last year, we were talking about getting rid of styrofoam containers or with our restaurants in the city of Los Angeles. And the wonderful big idea came from the idea and the presentation from our staff that Santa Monica had done it, and it was wildly successful. So rather than just take their word for it, I said, that's wonderful. Now, show us the documentation, show us the follow-through that the city of Santa Monica did to document the fact that it's wildly successful. Well, when our staff went to talk to their staff, they just said it's wildly successful. And then our staff said, yeah, great, wonderful, where's the documentation, where are the interviews, where's the examples of the amount of trash that you've reduced by reducing your styrofoam containers or not allowing styrofoam containers to be given in your restaurants within your city. And they just said it's wildly successful. And then so what some of our staff did is went actually to some of the restaurants, it's a small city, and talked to at least a dozen restaurant managers, and then finally when they realized that we weren't investigating them or what have you, they started confiding in us and telling us the stories about how it's not wildly successful and how it's not being implemented the way the city intended. So I give you that example because it sounds logical that school districts do better when they have a uniform policy across the board. I believe that's probably true. But what I would like for us to see and have the LAUSD do as well is for them to start documenting that for themselves should they implement this policy, and then also that we get that information from these other districts as mentioned so that they can show us that they've actually tracked it and can prove that it actually has that kind of impact. Like I said, it's a wonderful idea. I'm going to vote for it, but at the same time, far too often, because it sounds like a wonderful idea, we make assumptions when people tell us it worked over there in Houston or it worked in Chicago. Well, if it did work, then they should be able to document it. And if they documented it, then that's the way for us to make sure that we document it when we do things as well. So once again, I'll support it, but I would love for us to see the documentation, or more importantly, for the district to be able to track what they do and get the documentation from other districts.
Thank you, Mr. Cardenas. Ms. Hahn?
Thank you very much. Well, I just wanted to stand and voice my support of this idea that we really urge and support LAUSD's efforts to provide a mandatory uniform policy throughout their schools. I am happy that Captain Tangrides came today to talk about the experience we've had at Markham. Markham Middle School is in Watts, and it had a number of problems on a number of levels, particularly with the kids going to and from school. We were told they were urged to join a gang on their first day of school just to make sure that they could travel safely to and from school, which is why we worked really hard to help fund the Safe Passage programs. But it was remarkable what happened at Markham. I think so much improved at that school. And it was actually through the city attorney's office, Rocky Delgadillo's office. He actually adopted Markham and helped to fund the purchase of uniforms for all the kids in that school. And we saw a remarkable change in the disciplinary actions that took place there. You know, I also think it's interesting that most charter schools, and these are schools that are kind of taking a different tact in how they educate their kids, and their scores have really been up in their first years of operation. And most charter schools, I know Green Dot is one of them, I know the Charter High School in San Pedro, the Port of Los Angeles High School, they have uniforms. And I think that's a part of their holistic approach to educating their kids. The other thing I was thinking about, it makes sense, we have problems sometimes with truancy and with kids leaving campus. And particularly in the schools, hopefully we're phasing out of any kind of off-track year and not the traditional calendar. I think Jose said this was our last year that the schools would be on these year-round schools. But there was an issue of kids, and were they in school, weren't they in school, and clearly if they were wearing the school uniform, no matter where they were that day, if they were off campus, it would be pretty easy to spot who they were and where they needed to be, and to help them get back on campus like they were supposed to. So I think it's a good policy. I think it makes sense. Certainly the status quo at LAUSD is not something I think anybody wants to embrace. So I think reform, I think change, I think things that give more accountability for the students and their families makes a lot of sense, and ultimately I think will help the kids improve in their educational opportunities. So thank you for bringing this forward, and I support it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hahn.
Sure.
Mr. LeBonge.
I wanted to rise to thank Jose Huizar, former president of the school board. That initiative that you just spoke of, I'm sure as many that you had fought in battles at the LA Unified School District, but to bring it to us shows a consistency which I greatly appreciate. I know the Long Beach Unified School District, I believe, has this program, and it is not going to solve everything, but as the captain spoke of earlier, and what happened at schools in his division, it does make a difference. So I thank you, and I think we must understand public schools need public support. And if we're going to help change it and make it what it was, when some of us, when Richard went to Poly and Tony went to San Fernando and I went to Marshall, and I don't know, others went to other schools around, but you graduated with flying colors, valedictorian. Okay, that's right. But it's important for this, to make school a fun learning experience so young people don't have to worry what they have to wear today. It's a good thing. So I thank you for bringing it to us, Jose, and your leadership to push this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LeBonge. The matter is before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Very well.
Mr. President, you have 12 council members now. Would you like to reconsider the ordinances on 14, 15, and 16 so those can be adopted on first reading?
Yes, let's do that. On those matters, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
And that would have 14, 15, and 16 before council again.
Very well. We have a request by Councilmember Hahn on 28, on the ordinance, I'm sorry, on the ordinance, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Very well.
And I believe there was a request on item number 14 for that matter to go forthwith.
Forthwith on that matter. We have a request from Councilmember Garcetti, number 28 and 45 on priority. If we can please take up 28 and 45 for Mr. Garcetti. And Ms. Hahn, I think you have information on that. Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, before us today, we have two items which relate to the reestablishment of BTAC, the Business Tax Advisory Committee. There couldn't be a more critical moment for us to reconstitute this and to move forward. To date, the work that this council did a few years ago has returned more than $100 million to local businesses. We know one of the worst things that we have in the city of Los Angeles is a local business tax, which unfortunately when a company is deciding whether it should headquarter in Burbank or Glendale or Los Angeles or elsewhere, they make those comparisons, as Yahoo did just a few years ago, and because the city of Los Angeles still has a business tax and many of our other neighboring cities do not, they often don't locate in the city of Los Angeles, even though they locate in the region, depriving us of the jobs and the taxes and the economic activity. I used to think when I first came to City Council, maybe this was a bad idea to reduce business taxes because we need to have those taxes for critical services. But I'll tell you a story. In Hollywood, we had one of those companies that was looking at multiple jurisdictions, Glendale, Burbank, Chicago, and L.A. Nielsen, which does all the ratings for Nielsen's for television and radio. And they said, we've come to Hollywood because we want to be in Hollywood. It's Hollywood, after all. It's the most, it's the best name. It's the marquee location. But you guys have this business tax that is the difference for us between whether we can make it work or not. And in the community redevelopment area in Hollywood, we had a provision that allowed us to waive for a number of years the business tax to attract businesses. And when they found out about that, they came to Hollywood. They brought 500 jobs that average over $70,000 per job. People who spend money at restaurants and who go shopping in the area, who see movies in Hollywood. And that engenders more jobs and more revenue and helps that turnaround. When we had BTAC, this was a group of individuals from around the city, professionals from business, from labor, from communities, accountants, who tried to not only reduce our business taxes, but to simplify a very complicated system. And I think the success speaks for itself. The Garcetti-Gould tax package that I mentioned not only reduced business tax for about by $100 million for businesses, but it eliminated the business tax altogether for more than 50% of our businesses here in Los Angeles. And guess what? That year, we had more business tax revenue than we ever had before. We go after those who aren't paying the tax. We make sure that we encourage more businesses to come. And even as we reduce the business tax, we can get more revenue overall from that sector by making this a more business-friendly city. Today, the situation is even more grim. And in the city of Los Angeles, we probably have a real unemployment rate of about 25%. The official one is about 14%. But if you look at people who are no longer looking for jobs, or for those who are so underemployed that they essentially can't support their families, it's really about 1 in 4 workers. It's a devastating statistic. And one of the things I'd like to amend to this report is to add a friendly amendment for BTAC to review the potential of creating a tax credit for businesses that is specifically tied to the creation of new living wage jobs in Los Angeles. We should be encouraging businesses that are looking around the United States and around California and around the Southland to be in LA because they know they will get a credit for any new jobs that they create. That is the sort of thinking that we can do at the local level to stimulate our economy and to get people back to work. But the way that we have this here, we would be able to have a timeline to reconstitute an efficient group. It was a very large group before, and so this would be a little bit more lean and mean to be able to get something done more quickly. We've talked with the chambers of commerce, with our business improvement districts, with our neighborhood councils and others who are already suggesting good people that would be part of this. But it would reconstitute this 9 members. We would be able to have, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them would come from the council and 2 from the mayor. And we'd also be able to have a small enough group to be able to move quickly. We had good attendance in the last one, but I think a lot of the members of the old BTAC said with such a large body, it did slow things up. And I think in this recession, that's the last thing that we need. But we would have the chair of TCT, the chair of Budget and Finance, the chair of HCD, the chair of Jobs Committee, each appoint 1. Our President Pro Tem appoint 1, 2 the council president, and 2 from the mayor. And I'll work, with the ones that I have with members. If you have good people, let me know to make sure we have the finest folks that are part of that. But we can work with VICA and the chamber and others and get business tax moving again, reduction moving again. I appreciate the work the Office of Finance has done with this, and the CLA and CAO who took a leap of faith on this because they, as they should, guarding the budget, had a lot of skepticism when we first did this. But I think the proof has been in the pudding of companies that have stayed here, that have grown here, and that are more attracted to Los Angeles as we struggle to make this a more business-friendly city. This is a critical move forward. So I encourage your support today, and with that amendment, move the reports that are here before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Garcetti, Ms. Hahn, followed by Mr. Alarcon.
Thank you. Well, I am a great supporter of this idea. It was actually under Eric Garcetti and our former colleague, Wendy Gruhl, in 2004 when the BTAC really first came into being, and as you said, President Garcetti, the proof has been in the pudding. It was really important that we take a look at reforming the structure of how we tax our businesses. Well, here we are in 2009, and we've got a really tough economy. We've got people from all sectors, all walks of life, really calling on us, the decision makers, to do everything we can to keep these businesses staying afloat, to attract more businesses, to keep these, because we know that this is where most of the jobs come, is from our small businesses. So now's the time to reenact this BTAC, this committee, that will once again look at the business tax structure here in the city of Los Angeles and find out if there are ways that we can reform it even more. There's more things we can do to show that we are truly business friendly. There's nothing worse right now than for a city the size of Los Angeles to in any way be labeled, business unfriendly or anti-business. That's not what we want to be right now. We want to be business friendly. We want to bend over backwards to figure out how we can keep our businesses again surviving in this tough time, and more importantly, maybe attract new businesses. Look, we cut. We've had a very difficult budget crisis that we eked through recently. It's going to be bad next year. But we need to figure out how to get more revenue in the city. We need to figure out how to create more jobs, keep people employed, keep them from losing their own homes. And these are the kind of things that we can do to look at. And hopefully every one of us who has an appointee on this commission will obviously point someone who is a business owner, hopefully a lot of small business owners who really have lived this, have breathed this, and know the angst and the frustration maybe that comes from our structure that we have right now. Hopefully at the end of this, we will have done some really great things for our businesses to keep them here, to attract new businesses, to keep people employed, and I think this is exactly the right time for us to do this again. I wish this committee well, and I want them to get to work as soon as possible so we can send this message loud and clear that Los Angeles is open for business, we want business, and we want you to survive and thrive when you get here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Mr. Alarcon.
Members, the Jobs and Business Development Committee received 7 separate motions related to business tax reform. This report before us actually combines all 7 motions, and in the form of items number 28 and 45, it actually has 7 different motions. So I want everybody to understand what we are doing, because I don't know if all of you understand that some of your motions may be involved here. The first motion was a Hahn Garcetti Rosendahl motion that asked the CAO, the CLA, and Finance to review and report back on proposals related to the gross receipts tax. We're moving that, by virtue of this report, we're moving that under the auspices of the BTAC for them to consider that. Another motion was a Hahn Parks motion, and then Garcetti Alarcon introduced on the formation of it. We've come to agreement on that as was described by Mr. Garcetti. A fourth motion was introduced by Zine, Smith, and Garcetti, asking the CLA, the CAO, and Finance to report with an analysis of proposed modifications to the city's new business tax exemption policy. We're moving that also to the BTAC to review. Smith Gruhl introduced a motion that asked the CAO, CLA, and Finance for recommendations on hiring an independent contractor to develop an economic trigger for additional gross receipts tax rate reductions. That action will be referred back to the Jobs and Business Development Committee with asking for the Office of Finance to report to the committee relative to what it would take to hire an independent contractor to review that. There's a motion by Zine and Gruhl that asks the CLA to report on surrounding cities' gross receipts tax. and to develop a proposal for a pilot program to establish targeted enterprise zones with revised business tax rules in selected areas. The bottom line is that we are also asking that BTAC review the opportunities to assess what other jurisdictions are doing in the proximity of Los Angeles, and then also how to use the notion of targeted enterprise zones perhaps selecting geographic areas to provide additional business tax reform. There's a final motion, Garcetti, Rosendahl, Smith, Gruhl, that asks Finance to report on business tax classification for Internet-based businesses. And again, that matter will be referred back to the committee and with a report from Office of Finance. So all of these 7 items are included in this report because we wanted to streamline the process. We also wanted to place a focus on BTAC and the work that they have before them. The Council did some amazing work with the establishment of the first BTAC. In that work, we discovered that not only did we reduce the taxes imposed on businesses, but we at the same time increased the revenue generated from that classification of businesses because more participated in the process. What we don't know is to what extent we can reduce it even further to have the same effect, and that would be our goal. I think that creating a leaner tax structure for businesses can not only stimulate revenue for the city of Los Angeles, but more importantly, create more jobs for the city. And that's why I support all of these measures, and I'm looking forward to working with the BTAC to come forward with recommendations. Now, the one thing I do want to point out is that we're not going to wait for BTAC to complete a final report before we may take actions on specific items. We don't need to do that. And that's why the timing of this, to give it 18 months, is so important. Even though we're giving it 18 months, we're not requiring it to come back with a recommendation in 18 months. If they want to come back with a recommendation in December that makes sense, we will act on it. That is, I think, important. We've already gone through the major review of that the original BTAC did. This is sort of in addition to that, and allows us an opportunity to act as we move through the process, which is what we need in Los Angeles. So with that, I encourage you to support the entire report out of the Jobs and Business Development Committee, as well as the additional report out of Budget and Finance relative to 2 of these items. But I think this is good for Los Angeles. This is good for creating jobs. I am gladly receive the friendly amendment from Mr. Garcetti with regard to focusing in on living wage jobs. We always talk about creating new jobs, but sometimes new jobs can create poverty if they're all minimum wage jobs and highly concentrated in certain areas. We need to increase the opportunities for our people to, for example, own homes someday in a city where we're looking at about 35% home ownership rate. So with that, I'm very pleased to submit the report and thank all the participants for all of their motions. I encourage you to submit more because nobody has the perfect solution, and it's a very dynamic city.
Thank you, Mr. Alarcon. We now have Mr. Smith, Mr. Rosendahl, and Mr. Garcetti. Mr. Smith? He's going to pass, Mr. Rosendahl?
I just want to thank Mr. Alarcon with his leadership now at that committee, and Mr. Garcetti with the leadership he's put on this. We're moving in the right direction. I just want to say thank you.
You're very welcome. Mr. Garcetti?
Just in conclusion, thank you, Mr. Alarcon, who continues with the committee to really provide, I think, both sides of the stimulus for our economy, both on worker incentives and also business incentives. Just one quick thing. Antoinette, I said I wouldn't have any questions for you, but I lied. So come forward. I just want the people of Los Angeles, Antoinette Cristobal, who runs our Office of Finance and does an extraordinary job with her folks to collect our taxes and to implement some of the policy. How much to date, I know it was over $100 million last year, how much to date have we returned to LA businesses through our business tax overall gross receipts reduction now?
Well, actually, it's $100 million annually.
Oh, okay.
That in tax relief that has been provided as a result of the tax reform measures that have been implemented since.
But it phased in, so would it be fair to say we're maybe at like the 300 million mark now or something like that?
Oh, cumulatively,
Yeah.
yes, it would be about 300 million.
And about 100 million each year.
Yes.
And I know also we had a tax amnesty which Ms. Gruhl put forward while she was still a council member and as controller. What did the tax amnesty get in additional revenues to help us close our budget deficit this year?
Well, the tax amnesty program was very successful. The budget target was $10 million. We were successful with that program. We generated $20.6 million, so there's an additional $10.6 million.
And that was from folks who hadn't paid the taxes. So the businesses that were paying their taxes, these were the ones who hadn't, maybe sometimes by intention, sometimes because they were confused, but one way or another we got them to pay.
Right, yes. We provided them a waiver of their penalty if they paid the principal and interest portion of the tax. So it was a very successful program, and even the one for 2001 that we had, that amnesty program really resulted in large recoveries of tax revenue for the city.
That's great. Well, congratulations on that work, and thank you. I just want to make sure that people knew that. We did move forward to say after a 15% cut, we should do another 15%. The internet piece as well, I think, is critical. Some of us know companies like LegalZoom and Shopzilla and those who are just on the border of LA and who are looking at leaving LA, that it's not your role to interpret it anyway, but the right way. But we can also change the policy and incentives for, when we have .com companies, they might be providing services or sales, but those are not necessarily coming from Los Angeles companies. They're actually getting business from Cleveland and getting business from Florida and getting business from Kansas, and that's a great thing for the LA economy. So I think that's something BTAC really needs to look at. Those .coms that are here in LA, how do we keep them and retain them and grow them? And I think Mr. Alarcon went through the rest of the motions exhaustively, so appreciate Ms. Hahn's work on this, Mr. Alarcon's work on this, Mr. Weston's appointments that are going to be part of this, and Mr. Smith's good work, and Mr. Parks, and the entire council really has made this a priority. But I would underscore in conclusion what Mr. Alarcon said. We expect BTAC to give us something in the next month or two that we can pass here, and I hope specifically one of those is that business tax credit for new jobs, because there's nothing more important right now. Thank you, and I urge your support.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. That matter is now before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Very well. And now I have a request from Mr. Rosendahl and Ms. Hahn on 39 and 40. Mr. Rosendahl and Ms. Hahn. Ms. Hahn on 39 and 40. For discussion. Good morning, Jean Marie Lindsay.
Yeah, well, it's too late to put on consent if we call it special. But we can approve it quickly. Colleagues, what's before us today is the contracts to begin work on the Tom Bradley International Terminal, the inside and the outside. What this does will, of course, get us the gates on the west side, which will help us prepare for that next generation of aircraft. We had a very lively discussion in Commerce Committee this morning. We're very excited about it. One of the concerns we had, which was addressed, that as we all said, this is our economic stimulus package in Los Angeles. This is $1 billion worth of work, improvements, modernization, and we want to make sure that everyone benefits from this. And we got a letter in committee that was from the South Bay Latino Chamber of Commerce that just wanted to make sure that they were also going to be included in any kind of outreach, any kind of workshops, any kind of way that they could reach out to their members to make sure that, minority, women-owned, small businesses are able to participate in what is really, at this point, one of the only games in town in terms of real construction jobs and real work happening. So just for the record, give us that comfort that we are going to try to really have the kind of outreach that at the end of the day, when these packages are delivered, we'll feel confident that everyone in this region had an opportunity to participate.
Yes, and as we indicated in committee, we've already spoken with the South Bay Latino Chamber, and they will get rolled in. We have a very robust outreach program right now. In fact, our contractor has put together a coordinating council comprised of most of the local chamber as well as ethnic chambers and minority business councils for significant outreach. And we have a packaging strategy that will also make it easier for smaller businesses to be able to participate in this program. So.
Thank you. And I just want to thank Councilmember Rosendahl for your leadership. Along with me, we've been a real good team in making sure that we modernize this airport so that when the economy does pick up, we'll be ready to attract visitors from all over. We need a world-class airport for the world-class city that we are. Thank you. I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Just a quick second and a shout out. You know, this is a great day for us. I mean, it's getting better every day with LAX. The modernization is happening every day. We're seeing the progress made, and I just want to salute the two of you for your leadership. And I'll never forget when we were first dealing with how do we make Bradley Terminal the greenest airport around, and you've done it. You've really moved it in the right direction. And Gina Marie, your overall leadership is breathtaking for all of us here in the council. So obviously I agree with Ms. Hahn. Let's just go forward with it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Weezar. Mr. Alarcon. After Mr. Weezar.
Go ahead, Mr.
Well, both of you, Mr. Weezar and then Mr. Alarcon, or vice versa, whichever you prefer.
Thank you. I'm trying to find reports on this item. I don't have them before me, and obviously we all support us moving forward. What exactly are we voting on here today? And I think that also needs to be made a bit more clear for the public to understand what we're voting on.
Okay.
Please hold my time.
What you're voting on today, there are two items before you. One is to approve the contract amendment for construction services on the first contract that was awarded to the Walsh-Austin joint venture for construction of the concourses associated with the Bradley West Gates project. The second one is the award of a contract for pre-construction and construction services for the core element of the Bradley West terminal. So it is your two contracts, both of which will result in the construction of the Bradley West terminal facility.
Thank you very much. And yes, we didn't have these reports in our books. They were passed out just this morning. And so I'm hearing a lot about minority contracting, local business contracting. What are those numbers and what rules are we following? Are we following our own policies or are we following state policies in terms of local hiring, local contracting, and minority contracting?
Yes, we are.
Please hold my time.
Absolutely, we are following not only the state policies, our own, we're exceeding those. And again, I can say that one of the main reasons we selected the Walsh-Austin joint venture was their substantial commitment to minority and disadvantaged and women-owned business enterprises. They have done a tremendous job working with our Business and Jobs Resource Center to reach out to the community. In the last 2 months, they've held 3 open houses to bring the minority communities together, to explain to them the subcontracting opportunities for the program. They've spoken at numerous organizations, including the Greater Los Angeles African American Chamber, the Regional Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, National Minority Contractors, as well as the National Center for American Indian Development, and others. Over the last 3 months, they've conducted 19 outreach meetings and networking events with most of the organizations I've already discussed, plus dozens of others. They've convened a community council that's working together to reach out to the community. There's 18 members on that council, including, again, the Greater LA African American Chamber, the Latin Business Association.
That's the outreach. What about the goal? I mean, what goal do they have?
The goals they have right now are 20% for their pre-construction, and our purchasing and procurement gave them a 14% goal for minority. I will tell you that right now they are exceeding their goal. They're at 31% already. So they are moving forward. The other thing that I mentioned to Ms. Hahn is we have also kind of changed the way we're doing this with our packaging strategy, where, for example, on there's a temporary bus gate facility that's out right now. That package, that would have normally been broken down into about 4 or 5 subcontractor packages. It's been broken down into 20 subcontractor packages to make the packages small enough to actually be able to encourage small business participation, both having the capacity to do the job as well as the capacity to bond it. So we've got an outreach program and we've got a construction packaging strategy that are all designed to try and improve and maximize our local small business and minority business participation.
Great, thank you very much. And so this has gone through the Airport Commission?
It has been
They
to the
approved it,
Airport
and then went
Commission.
to committee
Yes.
this morning. The council has seen it right now.
Correct.
And what we're voting on is an item for $14.7 million for construction management services.
No, we are voting on approving two total contract values of $1.13 billion that are upper limit contracts. We're using a construction management at risk concrete method on this. So what you're approving is a upper limit contract. The contractor will come back to us with trade packages that they are going to bid out, and our board will approve those based on the trade packages that they bring to us, and then they will be paid for the actual cost of the work performed.
Okay, and this is what percentage of the overall cost to the renovations we're doing at the Bradley Terminal?
The total project cost for this, if you include all of the soft costs, the engineering, design, program management, construction support services, is about $1.5 billion. The entire, what we're calling the LAX development program itself, which includes all the airfield work, the renovation of the central utility plant, is approximately $3 billion. So it's about 50% of the total project.
It's 50%.
50%.
What we're approving today is about 50% of the total project of the renovation.
Of the LAX development program, yes.
Gotcha. And yes, we just got these reports right now, so I'm asking some basic questions that I think need to be asked and for the public to understand exactly what we're moving for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weezer. Mr. LeBonge? Mr. LeBonge.
Great job, move forward.
Thank you, Mr. LeBonge. The matter is now before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 eyes.
Very well. Forthwith. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to add on that there were some cards. Denny Snyder was here, and there was a public hearing on that matter, so we appreciate that. Now we can go to public comment, and we will bring forth Daniel Garcia. Daniel Garcia, public comment. Daniel Garcia here?
Good morning, City Council.
Good morning.
And I want to pass a poem that I wrote to you about my college years in honor
Mr. President, he'd like me to read an article here. What Dick and Jane forgot to say. You don't see me, but I see you. Standing, walking, socializing. You don't know me, but I know you. The slaver, baby stealer, war maker, disabled maker, love maker. Am I being too harsh on you? Oh, but I know that you had been harsher on us, putting us in rehab institutions where your sister was raped while in a coma, and your brother, full of war medals, can't find a job until he found the only job that he was well trained to do, killing himself. Or your daughter being sterilized because you thought she could not take care of her baby, abandoning your wife after you found out she is a quadriplegic. You don't remember me before infamous Auschwitz, but there were institutions of death, merciful death, more death, but I remember you. Concentration camp, final solution, the Holocaust, 10 million people killed. They started with me, cerebral palsy, mental retardation, spinal cord injuries, but they ended with you, gays, Jews, European melting pots. Remember, whatever happens to me, it could happen to you.
This is a poem I want to read because the council must not forget to the people with disability, and because people with disability I'm going to avoid it.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. Daniel Garcia? I'm sorry, John Walsh. Thank you, Daniel Garcia. John Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. Check out Neon Tommy and check out lamplight.org. LA Times, yesterday, they sounded like HollywoodHighlands.org. Train wreck. Train wreck. The mayor of the city of Los Angeles promised us a huge factory. There never was. If you want to know what happened, go to HollywoodHighlands.org. And I'll give you the short form of what happened. And Mr. Labange was there, and if I'm wrong, say it. The mayor passed out at the meeting before the vote. He passed out. Now, some people are saying now, because he won't deal with it, that he had a seizure at the meeting. I know that Neon Tommy has a tape of it. I know that the Bus Riders Union has a tape of it. I know that the MTA has a tape of it. When your mayor loses consciousness, we're asking what happened. Do we have to go to the USA Student News to find out exactly what happened to the mayor? We know that the disaster with the Ansaldo Breda. And you know what people are now doing? Using racist comments and blaming it on the Italian race. I heard that on KPCC. Hate speech. It's the Italians that are the fault. It's Italy that's the fault. No. It's a mayor who can't even keep awake during the meetings. That's why I'm asking you now to ask this mayor why he lost consciousness, why he passed out at the meeting. And if I'm lying about the mayor, arrest me now. If I'm saying something that's not true and hurting the mayor's reputation, arrest me now. You know what I say is true. There's only one place you can find out what's happening in this damn city, and that's HollywoodHighlands.org. And we'll be talking about sexual
Dr.
scandals.
Clyde Williams. Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams here? Dr. Williams is not here. Arnold Sachs.
Another lawsuit pending. Good morning. Thank you, Arnold Sachs. I'd just like to relate 3 articles that appeared in the LA Times. On 10/23 in an editorial, they wrote about wrong in big bright lights, how the DA's office was wrong to go after the LA Live project because the city had made promises, keeping its word for safe, responsible investments. In a newspaper article regarding the county and a fiasco that occurred there with nepotism, they wrote, the case raises lingering questions about the supervisor's vetting of executive officers' requests for new positions, even though supporting documentation was needed. Then on Friday the 30th, they put an editorial in Putting the Lid on Pot Sales, where they take shots, can you imagine that, at the city council's efforts on marijuana dispensary sales, and they use the billboard ordinance as an example. Yet, the billboard ordinances, they talked about vetting the item because the city had made promises. But when the county has a personnel issue regarding nepotism and vetting positions, that's not a good thing. But when the city makes promises without proper documentation, well, that's a good thing. What's the difference? Well, maybe the LA Times could explain that in their editorials. When we're talking about vetting, we're not talking about vetting. We're talking about vetting, which is what the city council does when they talk about any ordinance that pertains to deep pockets in the city. We're talking about the public.
Nick Dunham.
Good morning. My name is Nick Dahman, and I'm with LA CAN. I'm here today as a member of our Human Rights Committee. We're concerned about a motion introduced September 29th, motion number 2415, regarding a review of the Safer Cities Initiative. 1 month later, we're worried that the pressing issue and motion are left floating while our community continues to be oversaturated while officers are needed elsewhere in the city. I know you can't respond to this request today, but we're also concerned that the motion's call for a review was scribbled out and replaced by status report. It is our contention that the Safer Cities Initiative needs not only a status report, but also a thorough review. We should have nothing to fear in a review. So, we look forward to this motion moving on and being calendared quickly in public safety. Thank you.
Walter Bechtel.
Good morning. I wanted to reiterate some things about the Ford Hotel project. Some people have been coming in here and over at the Board of Supervisors meeting, and I think you should pay attention to them because 90 units of the Ford Hotel are supposed to be designated for people with disabilities, not just mental disabilities, just anybody who are older disabled people. And I try to tell you, a lot of these people can't even walk and hardly get to the grocery store, but you're going to put kitchenettes in each one of those rooms. I think it would be a better idea to have a cooking facility downstairs and a nutritionist who supervised the cooking of the meals and brought those meals up to those people, or have the option of them going downstairs and picking up the meals. But that, nobody wants to hear us at any CUP meetings or any public meetings. You just do these things outside of the law, and I'm forced to try to complain to the federal government and other branches of the government that you're not proceeding properly. I think it's not a good idea to let these vested companies do whatever they feel like and then find out later, like Ms. Perry found out about the parking lot people over at the Presidio who were shuffling money off to themselves, and it wasn't until 3 buildings were demolished and the last 2 that remained were burned that she realized that they were betraying us. So I want to encourage the council to please enforce the law in equity, and that these people, whoever they are, SRO, AEG, whoever they are, if they're not abiding by the law, enforce the law just like any other person, because that's the only way we have to make sure they don't go off and do things like they've done in other ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bechtel. Matt Dowd.
Thank you. Yes. Now, I don't know if you noticed, my first comment was very nice, and I was trying to be good, but now I'm pissed again because you make the public wait when public comment is agendized right at the beginning of the meeting. And I'm mad as hell about that. Now, if you want to have it at the end, just put it at the end, because we all have lives. And we make plans early in the morning, and we've got to get on buses and trains and transport and whatever and organize ourselves to get here at 10 o'clock. And if you had it at 10 o'clock and we get here at 10:15, I know you wouldn't open it back up. So just put it at the end of the meeting, Dennis Zine, if you want public comment at the end, because these are the people and they've got lives to lead. And I don't want to sit here waiting while you do all this. The commissioners are all getting paid. Everyone's getting a paycheck except us. Mad as hell at you now. So now you're getting the ugly comment because you're the Marijuana Council. That's the only magazine you get on the front cover. Because everything you do, you must be on drugs or something. Here's your legal. I got a lawsuit now with 12 performers over these permits because you're squeezing all the performers off the beach by handing out permits to all these people who just sell goods. And they don't have anything at all to protect them. You're just handing out permits. They're taking all the spots in the lottery. But here's what your attorney, and I'm talking about Carmen Trutanich now, good, because he's the one who went to Zuma Dog. Oh, please, Zuma Dog, please, can I come to your karaoke event so I can beat Jack Weiss in the election? He begged us to come and get on YouTube. It's on YouTube. Look at it. But anyway, Carmen Trutanich, on one hand, on Monday, we're in court here. On one hand, you're asking the court to dismiss our case, but on the same day, you're arguing all the merits. So it's just a total contradiction in your legal strategy.
Thank you. Dr. Williams, we call on you, and I see you're back, Dr. Williams.
Dr. Clyde Williams, 4115 Bear Road, El Sereno, Northeast LA. Soon you may have an issue with the stormwater, Ballona Creek, and the TMDL requirements for Ballona Creek. These are just the tip of the iceberg. It's only an iceberg of $720 million of capital costs directly for the city, plus probably an equivalent amount, or at least 50% of that amount, for the property owners within the Ballona Creek drainage area, because they will have to do the retrofitting of all of their downspouts, which is part of this plan. The Board of Public Works approved it. Then they approved it, but there's no source of the money. Where's the money going to come from? Who are the stakeholders? They did not include any neighborhood councils in their outreach. They only had selective stakeholders. Timeliness. They were supposed to submit it last week, but they haven't, because they delayed it to the very last minute so that there would be, quotes, a critical time element on it. The report itself, the Ballona Creek bacteria TMDL report, is flawed. It doesn't indicate where the existing discharges are. It doesn't include how many drain spouts are going to have to be disconnected from the city drainage system. It doesn't have any geology. It doesn't have any consistent liquefaction and other elements. And apparently whoever prepared it didn't know how bacteria grow in the LA River, in the Ballona Creek, and in the Ballona Creek wetlands. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That closes public comment. Madam Clerk, we have a request for number 46 now.
And that was called special by Council Member Parks and Mr. Garcetti as well. And there are two reports on the file.
Mr. Garcetti, number 46.
Colleagues, we have an item before us under the provisions of the Brown Act. Because of the security issues that are involved in this, I would ask the city attorney if he would cite just what the language is for that, and then I will propose the findings based on what we have before us to go into closed session to discuss this item that is before us.
Under Government Code Section 54957A, the closed session is available for discussion with the Chief of Police on matters that may pose a threat to the security of the, in this instance, Police Administration Building, or a threat to the security of essential law enforcement services.
If there's open session stuff that people want to talk about, you know, the cost of this and the logistics of it, that's appropriate for open session. In closed session, there are some issues about, the inner workings of some of our anti-terrorism work that I would propose we go into closed session to discuss on this item. So if there's nobody who wants to discuss open session stuff, I'd go to the closed session now. No?
Yeah, we've heard this in committee. I'm willing to move this forward. Mr. Parks asked some questions, and the deal really was stacking and approvals. So I don't know if we need executive session or not. Bernard?
I think we may need it in the sense of the relationships between and the oversight part of it, which I think is my major issue as far as our Inspector General and Commission's oversight, and I don't think we want to have that.
Let's go into closed just for that, and we'll come back into open if there's anything.
Well, we have some city attorney matters in closed session, so why don't we just hold this to the end, then, and just go straight forward from
we
there.
got about 7 cases.
Sounds good. Yeah, we don't need to do that right now. We can take a bit of it, I'm sure. Although Chief Downing, I think, who's going to be here for part of it, can't stay for all of that time, I've been told. But we'll work it out. Let's go to the next item, and we'll see how much other stuff we have left and see if we can get to that.
Mr. Garcetti, the next item on the...
How many more items do we have outside of our closed session?
Madam Clerk, 4, 5?
And are those mostly special for cards, or members called this?
We do have cards on a number of items.
But are those called special for cards, or also for...
They're for both. There's 2 for council members, and then the rest are for cards.
Okay. Well, colleagues, if you want to, we can step in the back briefly. I do think it's important to hear the reasoning behind this. That way the public doesn't have to move. Or how long do you have, Chief? Okay. Okay. All right. We should be able to knock out the other open session ones. Let's go through those 6 then, real quick. And we'll hold this on the desk.
Oh, very well. Let's proceed. How the next item, would that be 23?
Yes, and that was called special by Councilmember Huizar.
Councilmember Huizar, number 23, we have a number of cards.
We can open the public hearing, please.
You want to reopen the public hearing?
Yes, please.
On the matter, we open the public hearing, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
11 ayes, and open the public hearing. Okay, we're going to reopen the public hearing without opposition. We have the vote to do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 8 speakers on this matter.
Yes, if we could, given the time that we need with our chief of police for closed session, we could, currently we give 2 minutes per speaker, or what's?
Usually we do, but when you reopen, it's up to you.
Okay.
There's 8 cards. They're all support the proposal.
Okay, we could give 1 minute per speaker. Yes.
Very well. 1 minute per speaker on these, number 23. Linda Valverde. Is Linda Valverde here?
Hi, good morning, Linda Valverde. I'm from the Los Angeles Community Action Network, LA CAN. The Los Angeles Community Action Network would like to express our support for the proposed food waste ordinance that is being considered today. In 2005, LA CAN conducted a community food assessment which analyzed food insecurity, access to nutritious and high food, and interest in improving nutritional food intake in the Skid Row community. We would also like to stress the importance of including redevelopment projects in this proposed ordinance. This could expand the impact of this ordinance substantially. When resources are provided to redevelopment agency, participation in a food waste program is a reasonable requirement as a condition of the funding. When combined with other community benefits, we can maximize the impacts of public investment. We look forward to working with you as this ordinance is drafted. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Garcia. Daniel Garcia.
I have 1 minute. Okay, good. I have to say that this is very important thing to do because food has been wasted along the way, and food pantry should be magnified by tenfold on all the different issues, and this is one way to maximize the capacity of a food pantry, so we can give not only the people who need. The people who are seniors, veterans who are disabled, as known. Thank you very much.
Jacqueline Flores. Ms. Flores? Not here. Elvira? Looks like Elvira, it's hard to read your last name. There you go.
B-A-R-N-A-R-D.
There you go. Okay. Go ahead, ma'am.
My name is Elvira Barnard. I'm here from Chicana Service Action Center. We serve the community on Mr. Huizar section, and we serve a lot of families in need. many, many, many women that needs food, and we consider this is a very good proposal, and we're here to support the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Fred Summers. Fred Summers.
Hi, I'm Fred Summers. I'm the Director of Operations for Jewish Family Service Silva Community Food and Resource Program here in Los Angeles. We operate 3 food pantries. Currently, it's estimated that 1 in 8 residents of Los Angeles is hungry or food insecure on any given day. That's a huge statistic. Silva represents just a small fraction of the relief effort. We were seeing about 4,000 people 2 years ago each month. Now it's up to 9,700 last month. This problem is growing. There's 6.5 million pounds of food waste here in California each year, and this initiative would address it. We looked for a way this last year to painlessly, being respectful of the city's budget situation, address these issues. This seems to be the least painful way possible that the city can contribute to the solution to this problem. I urge you to implement
John
this quickly.
Persley. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. John Persley. No John Persley. Frank Tamburello.
Good morning, Council. I'm Frank Tamburello with Hunger Action LA. We want to thank you for supporting this as a true initiative of the people. First publicly proposed here at Hunger Action Day right here at City Hall back in May. So this idea originated with a group of food providers and low-income people who, and we want to thank Councilmember Huizar and Koretz for their leadership on this issue. Our coalition asked, what can a city do when the main anti-hunger programs are at the state and federal level? And during this recession, food pantries are struggling with extra demand. We hope the city can set an example by donating their surplus food, as healthy food as possible, we hope, to the emergency food system. For those who may want additional information, the Good Samaritan Act protects the city from any liability from the use of donated food. We look forward to working with you as this idea is developed and as the CRA works with businesses to encourage them to donate. We especially think this is a good way for businesses that get CRA subsidies to show their thanks.
Thank you. Norman Gardner.
Good morning, City Council. My name is Norman Gardner. I'm just here with the Hunger Action Coalition in support of this amendment, so thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Huizar.
President, first I want to thank all the speakers who came out today to speak on this very, very important item. In fact, if this item passes and is successfully implemented, thousands upon thousands of more people will have access to a very basic human need, food. And especially in these economic times, we're finding that more and more families and individuals are food insecure at any time that we've seen before. And so I want to thank all the people who came out to speak today and people who gave their ideas. It was mentioned that working with Hunger Action and Mr. Summers and others, we thought about ways that the city can help in a cost-effective way. This is the most cost-effective way that the city can give its small part in making sure that more families have food on their table and have something to eat. I want to thank ITA, our Information Technology Agency. They have already agreed to provide information about food banks on 311. Operators will now have access to a list of all facilities and organizations located inside or near the city, along with those that are further outside its boundaries, but that will collect unused food. So if people are calling 311, this information will now be available to give out to people who call. But what we are doing here is asking the convention center, which sees thousands upon thousands each year, and they are fed each year for that food that is not used to give it over, the surplus food, to give it over to food banks and other similar agencies so that that food does not go to waste and actually gets to somebody who needs it. We're also asking that of other similar departments, and we're asking the CRA to work closely with local private businesses to see what they can do to ensure that more food is not wasted and actually gets to people who need it. This is a very important step, and the way the motion is written right now, we're asking the departments to do this. But I would like to amend this to ask that they come back in 60 days with an implementation plan to present to the full City Council so that we see how exactly we will implement this motion. I think that's very important. Hopefully they will already be in the works of doing this, but with them coming back and sharing their thoughts with us, we would find better ways, refine it, and make sure we are following through on this motion. Again, I want to thank everyone who came out, and if you think about it, you know, sometimes we take these eating as a luxury. Many of us in our lifestyles don't even think about it, but there are families, there are individuals who get up each day and think about how they're going to get that first food in their day, and that is something that no Angelino should have to experience. Thank you. So with the amendment, Mr. Zine, I ask that the Convention Center, the Department of Recreation and Parks, and the Department of Aging, along with the CRA, report back to the full City Council on their implementation plan for this motion. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weezer. That matter is now before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Very well. Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is item 31, and that was called special by Councilmember Parks.
Mr. Parks, number 31.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could we have the city staff come up, please?
City staff here on 31? Thank you.
Good morning. We realize this is very dated, it's been in committee for a while, but I would just like to ask, in looking at the equipment list that has been formally donated to the department, first of all, is this equipment in operation now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, with that in operation, is there special guidelines? Because it seems a little unique that this type of equipment would be given to gang units on an operational basis as opposed to maybe specialized units or detectives. And I'm just wondering, in the sense, are there guidelines, are there extra training, and how this equipment is being used?
No, there's no particular guidelines on that equipment. Those are items that are general items that are used by units that conduct search warrants, probation and parole searches. Some gang units have those items, others do not. 77th is pretty unique because of the nature of the and volume of search warrants and probation searches that they have, and requested that additional equipment and received it.
So they do search warrants without the support of other specialized units?
No, any search warrant that they do, there's a screen down process that goes through Metropolitan Division, and they take a look at the nature of the search warrant and see if it fits the criteria for something that Metropolitan Division would handle. And if it's something that fits that criteria, Metropolitan Division would handle that search warrant for the particular entity.
Okay, so if it screens down to their level, would they then do it with what, this equipment?
Yes, they would use that, whatever equipment they had, and those additional items of equipment they received.
So are you saying the bulk of the search warrants are done by Metro?
No, not the bulk of them, but the ones that meet certain criteria. Say, for example, there's automatic weapons, the location is fortified, something of that nature, Metropolitan Division would get involved.
And then is there extra training for gang officers to use this type of equipment?
I can't speak for the particular training as far as, there's no training to my knowledge. The training division provides for each gang unit to utilize those particular items. But those are standard items of equipment that are used throughout the department.
Well, one of the things I'm looking at it, and I know time passes, but standardized equipment throughout the department, when we're talking about telescopic ladders, rescue kits, binoculars, those are generally not uniform type day-to-day field officer equipment. And I'm just wondering how we incorporate that to ensure that there's proper oversight as it relates to the usage, the training, so that we don't find out later that there's been misuse.
These particular items, I know in speaking with Captain Green regarding this, Captain Green provides significant oversight over his gang unit. He's very particular about the things they do, equipment that they use. Looking at the items, telescopic, ladder, it's just an extended ladder that's used to allow them to get over fences, things of that nature. Looking at the items that are here, again, there's nothing that is out of the ordinary, and there's training that's provided by Metropolitan Division to all the gang units throughout the city. Some of these items or pieces of equipment and tools may be taught during that training. But as far as particular training for each item that's listed here, I don't know if there's any that exists. I'd have to follow up and verify that.
There was some, I think, miscommunication when we dealt with this as committee a while back. We thought we had given direction to ask for a report to come back, and obviously it didn't. But the dilemma we have is that the equipment has been in your possession since 2007, and we'd like to just throw one thing out, that just from the council perspective, that when you get donations, it's not supposed to be in the inventory until after it's approved. There were some hang-ups in getting it before the council. But I'm going to ask that, in a general sense, that we approve this, but that we asked for you to come back through your commission to give us some insight as to the amount of this type of equipment that is out in gang units, how it's being used and implemented, what are the policies, what's the training, so that we have a comfort level that we do not have some units that are better prepared and using dynamic equipment, or are they working on dynamic issues beyond what their training level is, so that there's a comfort level. Because again, just reading your list of equipment, it appears that that's more type of material that would be in Metro or detectives as opposed to a field gang unit. But if we could ask you to do that and give you 90 days and get it through your commission back to public safety, I would appreciate it.
Okay, I will do that. But when you indicate dynamic type things, I mean, it's not like where there's equipment that's used in a dynamic entry like SWAT would do. I think the dynamic rescue responder, that term dynamic is used there, but that's pretty much some sort of first aid kit. And so I don't want it to be confused that it's dynamic entries that are taking place with these gang units. They don't do dynamic entries.
Okay. Then maybe you could explain that and how they use it, because from reading the list, it gives a different impression.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So if you could do that through your commission, and I'd make a motion that we get that back in about 60 days, and then we'd have a much clearer idea. And if this is the type of equipment that's a necessity, then the next question is, then are all gang units equipped this way if they're all doing the same type of work?
Yeah, they're not. I mean, the funding's not there for those items.
All right. Thank you.
Councilmember Smith?
Hey, and to Mr. Park's comments, I concur that maybe the department needs to do some special training. When you have a unit that's acting like a SWAT squad, in some respects, that maybe you need that unit training. I mean, we're very big on making sure our people have standardized training. Every officer goes through a little bit of that, but as a unit, you're using some very special entry equipment that really, I think, requires that kind of a protocol to be written so that these units, if they're going to act like that, because not every division has all this stuff, but if you're going to encourage that, accept that, we need to have that kind of a program, I think, that we can see there's a standardized training. If it's one day at the academy, whatever, on dynamic entry, using all that equipment. I don't think we need to learn how to use a ladder or a flashlight or a mirror, but certainly as a dynamic entry team, if you're going to be using these specialized equipment, I think you need to have that kind of training. So I would ask, and I think Mr. Parks wanted to ask, that we have a report back on some standardized program for this kind of equipment, if you're going to start using that for non-SWAT type units. So if we could get that back to us, have the commission deal with it, maybe it doesn't have to be a part of this. I think we want to let this go because you're already using the equipment. And to the council, I say I apologize that these kind of files have been sitting around for a couple of years. When I got the committee a few months ago, we found dozens and dozens of files like this that have been sitting, gathering dust, and that's unfortunate. We're going to start moving them quicker so we don't have to come back and say, all right, you're using it for 2 years, what's the point at this point? But we'll clean that up. But I think Mr. Parks and I just really want to see that you come back with a standardized training program, that if these units are going to act as a quasi-SWAT team, they need to have that kind of training that goes along with that particular equipment. Any single piece of that, you see it in every kit room, just about every department. We're all shown the mirrors, all that stuff during the academy. But when you put it all together, it then says this is a special unit doing special things. And we just feel it would be better for the men and women that are working in that unit to have that kind of training. So if you could come back with that as a separate item, then I think Mr. Parks will be willing to let this go, and I'd be... All right, we'll move it forward then. All right?
Thank you, sir.
All right, that'll be the...
Very well. Matters before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 eyes.
Next item, please. Item 46?
Yeah.
The request, go back to number 46, please. Number 46.
That was called special by Councilmember Garcetti, Councilmember Parks, and there are 2 reports on the file. And there is a possibility of going into closed session on that
Very well.
matter as well.
Mr. Garcetti? Mr. Parks? Number 46?
This is the one that was closed session?
Mr. Garcetti, we're back to 46.
I would move that we go into closed session right now, just because of the time constraints of the chief. Which ones are left? We took the vote on this, on the food bank issue.
Yeah, 48, 50, and 51 are all left, and those all have cards.
Okay. I would propose we go into closed session. For the folks that have the cards for them, respectfully, if we'll come back. It shouldn't be a long discussion, but we're going to need to go into closed session shortly, and we'll take up those items as soon as we come back into open. Okay?
Going to closed session in the back? Okay, we will... We clear the chamber?
Come back, and then for all the cases that we have still
We're not
outstanding, we'll go back into closed session after that.
We're not clearing the chamber, or we are clearing the chamber?
Yeah, let's just clear the chamber.
Clear the chamber?
Yeah.
Sergeant at Arms, we're going to clear the chamber. We're going to go to closed session. Go into closed session items. Please clear the chamber. Thank you. We're back in session. Mr. Garcetti?
Yes, I would, in closed session, I'll just reiterate what we did and what we said in terms of the motion before us. I would instruct two things. One, to undergo MOU between federal authorities and LAPD on the oversight and sharing of the intelligence oversight functions that are done at the federal level with our Inspector General, to have all that full information available to our Inspector General, and also to work with them on any access issues and impediments to that for our Inspector General, to make sure there's also physical access as well as the sharing of that. And as such, I'll move the motion on this.
And also, there are two reports on this matter, ITGA and Public Safety, and I understand the ITGA report is to be adopted and receive and file Public Safety.
Yes.
Mr. Parks?
Mr. Garcetti, one friendly, just ask the commission to reevaluate their guidelines and see if this alteration impacts a change or alteration to their current guidelines.
Very well. That matter is now before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item, please.
Next item is item number 48.
Forthwith, please.
Forthwith on that previous item, number 48.
And that was called special for cards. And there is a motion to receive and file this matter after council has the hearing.
Number 48, John Walsh.
One minute. John Walsh, blogging in Hollywood Highlands.
Excuse me,
Hold on,
Mr. Walsh.
Hold on, Mr. Walsh. Mr. City Attorney.
This item will actually have to be continued.
This matter has to be continued?
Yes.
Do we have a continuation date on it? Mr. City Attorney, continue till when?
Mr. Zine, I would suggest letting Mr. Walsh say his 1 minute on this item, but this item should be continued because Mr. Cardenas is recusing himself.
We have other speakers, Mr. City Attorney.
Why don't we hear the public hearing?
Do we want to do the public hearing from all the speakers and then continue it?
Hold on.
Mr. Walsh.
Hold on.
Mr. Walsh.
Hold on.
Mr. Walsh.
Hold on, John.
We're going to organize this in a moment, so quit screaming. Mr. City Attorney, do we want to have the public speakers and then continue it?
Why is he saying continue? Can you hold on 1 second, John? Hold on.
Mr. City Attorney, we have public speakers on the matter.
Mr. Cardenas should be recusing himself.
We have 5 speakers on this matter. Would you hear from the speakers?
If I can have
Mr. Garcetti.
the floor. We have somebody who needs to recuse himself for this legally. That is the only reason why we are in this impediment here. So there's a recusal, and we can... Excuse me, Mr. Walsh. I'll give you the courtesy. Please give me the courtesy right now. Okay? I'm trying to right now. I'm respecting you very
Mr.
much,
President,
Mr.
I think
Walsh.
the speaker should be told...
I'm respecting you and trying to make this work for you and every speaker that is here right now. And I assume you and others would appreciate full information about this. This is why I'm rising to tell you that. I always treat you with respect, sir. So is the issue that we cannot have public hearing either with somebody who has to recuse themselves?
The issue is that before going into closed session, we had 11 members, so Mr. Cardenas could recuse himself.
Right.
Now there's only 10 members, and so the recusal would...
Let's go to the next item first. We'll see if we can get somebody down here for that. Okay?
All right, so we'll hold this
could be
item.
heard, Mr. Walsh.
Mr. Walsh, we're going to hold the item.
So we're going to hold item for a couple minutes, and I'm going to see if we can find somebody else.
So that matter is being held. Number 48 is on hold.
Next item is item number 50, and that was called special for cards.
All right, number 50, Mr. Walsh, on number 50, sir.
Now, you got an okay on number 50, right? I can speak for 1 minute. This is the Public Safety Committee. I don't feel safe in L.A. I don't feel safe here. You know, with all these guns, you know, Mr. Parks can carry a gun, Mr. Smith can carry a gun, Mr. Zine can carry a gun legally. Someday I may be shot down, and no court on the earth will convict you of anything.
How are you?
Justifiable homicide.
Are you on?
HollywoodHighlands.org. We support number 50 100% for the CAO, the Disaster Assistance Trust Fund. We need plenty of money because this city is a disaster. Thank you. You can have your 16 seconds back.
Thank you. That matter is before us. Open the roll. Mr. Dowd, I don't have a card from you, sir.
Yeah, it's one of those hotels. It's the
Number 50, there is no card from Mr. Dowd. Do you wish to speak? Fill out a card, Mr. Dowd. Go ahead.
Okay, consider it filled in. Yeah, this is a big one I talked about a lot, and this fund you're going to need if you build a subway to the sea. Now, here's what I'm proposing. You need to put the goods underground and keep the people above ground. You need a bus lane out the 10 freeway and get those, like those dash buses, get them going out to the beach. The billions of dollars from the federal government to try and create jobs for a subway to the sea is a fallacy. The federal money is needed in other areas, homelessness and the financial markets. The government's already thrown billions of dollars at this.
Okay, sounds good.
But look, as soon as you put people underground in Los Angeles and put this train system under here, that's a disaster waiting to happen, just waiting. So tell the mayor, Matt Dowd said no on the subway to the sea because it's inviting a bunch of problems. Now, I've talked to Janice Hahn about it with the port. You need to put that money, if you want to create jobs, build a container goods subway. Because who cares if a bunch of containers get crushed in an earthquake underground? But you don't want 500 people stuck in a subway in an earthquake. It's a nightmare. Imagine trying to dig them out at La Brea or somewhere. Thank you.
All right, that matter is now before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item, please.
Next item is item 51, and that was called special for cards.
Number 51. Arnold Sachs. He's not here? All right. John Walsh.
I want to profusely apologize for my remark about homeless people, since someday I may join them. Sometimes I do get angry and say things that I shouldn't say. This is my favorite topic about how you are totally on another planet. Silly string. You can't even buy silly string anymore in L.A. Silly string was a fad of several years ago. The city people complained it was shot into their hair at Halloween on Hollywood Boulevard. So the city came in. This is the big issue. Silly string. That we have a prohibition on silly string. You can buy heroin on the street of Hollywood Boulevard. I'll take you out there and buy all 15 of you heroin within 20 minutes. Okay? You can buy any damn thing you want on the street, including the people on the street, prostitutes. But silly string. I was out there on Hollywood Boulevard for Halloween. Everything ran smoothly. The police were low profile. There were no problems because law-abiding citizens came to celebrate. And what are you still talking about? Silly string. You are playing with yourselves. And if there's anything on earth I would not want to see, it's you 14 people playing with yourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, silly string is the past, but I want to thank Garcetti and Perry for their very strong sign that you're going to fight silly string from several years ago. I'll give you $20 if you can buy silly string any place in America. The silly string people, everyone who worked for silly string lost their job. The silly string factories closed in Taiwan, and you can't buy silly string. And I want to thank everybody for a wonderful evening on Hollywood Boulevard. A larger crowd than usual because it was on a Saturday. Now, you take the silly string, fold it 4 ways, and you have 14 places to put it. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Matt Dowd, number 51.
right, thank you. Yes, the biggest issue, of course, facing the city of Los Angeles. Oh, my goodness. But first, I want to shout out, there's the incredible attorneys. They need the silly string up there. Todd Lung's here today. He's over here. They need silly string up in the attorney's office because he's the one who said you don't have to give your real name on a permit for an LAPD enforcing the permits. That's silly. Your attorney says you don't have to give your real name to LAPD now, or to this Parks Rec when you're getting a permit. Is that right, Mr. LaBonge? So anyway, silly string. Is this for Halloween next year? It's typical of the way the city does business. You're not only insulting the Ninth Circuit with a stupid 25% offer that she fell off the chair, and oh my God, you're so out of favor with them now, but you're trying to ban something for an event that's already happened.
He's not talking about this item.
Thank you, Mr. Dowd. That matter is before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 eyes.
Next item, please.
Mr. President, I believe there's a request to continue item number 48 to Friday, which is November 6th.
Without objection?
And
Number
also,
48.
just to let council know, item number 11 was adopted inadvertently, and I believe there was a request to continue that to Friday. Do you wish to reconsider that so that can be continued?
Let's reconsider that. Open the roll in the reconsideration. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 eyes.
And then we'll have item number 11 on the continuation agenda for Friday.
Correct. Next item, please.
The next items then are the closed session items, and I believe there are cards on two of them on 54 and 60.
I have cards on 54 and 60. Mr. Sachs, he's not here. Mr. Dowd, he's out of time, and Mr. Walsh. Mr. Walsh is out of time. What about number 50? What about number 56? What about number 56? Okay, Mr. Walsh, you're out of order. Well, you're not going to be speaking, sir. Next item, please. In the closed session?
Yes, and that's items 53 through...
All right. We will go into closed session now. If the officers on the side, they can go in the back. LAPD officers. We're going to go into closed session on remaining items, and then we'll return on Channel 35. All right, we're back in open session. And, Mr. City Attorney, we have some closed cases.
Yes, and the first item before council is item number 53, and that's settlement in the case of Teresa de Jesus Diaz versus City of LA, and that's total amount is $199,341.15.
On that matter, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item, please.
The next item is item number 54, and that's B.A. Aguilar et al. Versus City, and there's various other cases in there. The total amount is $12,750,000, and the city attorney has an item to read into the record on that.
Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, we recommend that the amount be deposited by wire transfer as indicated in the report. We also request that the Comptroller's Office transfer the same sum, $12,750,000 from the reserve fund to the unappropriated balance and appropriate therefrom to the liability claims fund, 100 Department 59 liability claims over $100,000, account number 9770, to be reimbursed by proceeds from a future judgment obligation bond issuance. And 3, that the council make in open session a finding that the city intends to make an inter-fund borrowing or advance from the reserve fund to pay the judgment on an interim basis, which loan or advance will be refunded or reimbursed with the proceeds of a judgment obligation bond issue.
Very well. Matters before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Item passes. Next item, please.
Next item is item 55, and that settlement in the case of Lisa Johnson versus City of LA, and the total amount of that settlement is $354,000.
On that matter, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item, please.
Next item is item 56, and that is settlement in the case of David Moore et al. Versus City of LA, and that's authorizing the city attorney to execute a settlement agreement, and that's regarding a quiet title quiet title lawsuit, and there's no monetary on that.
On that matter, open the roll.
And just for
Mr. City
clarification, the city will be disclaiming any interest in that real property as part of the settlement.
Very well. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item, please.
Next item is item 58, and that settlement in the case of City of LA versus SWRD, and that is in the amount of $144,709.82, and that is receipt of money by the city.
On that matter, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item, please.
Next item is item 59, and that settlement in the case of Segala versus City of LA, and that's the total amount of that settlement is $1 million.
Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item, please.
And next item is item number 60, and that settlement in the case of Jennifer Nash versus City of LA, and the total amount of that settlement is $625,000.
On that matter, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item, please.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Before we post and referral, we have a special presentation to make. And if we can have the Sergeant at Arms and his colleagues. No, we're going to do it, we'll do it at the central area. A Senior Lead Officer Lopez and his colleagues. We have a special presentation to make, and his colleagues from central area. Mr. Smith, if you can please join them. The certificate is here. We have with us representatives from Central Division, Senior Lead Officer, and our Sergeant at Arms, Joe Luis Lopez. And we're honored today to congratulate Sergeant at Arms Officer Lopez as he retires after 35 years of service with the Los Angeles Police Department. Born in Laredo, Texas, graduated Abraham Lincoln High School and Bachelor of Science, Criminal Justice from Cal State University of Los Angeles, Cal State LA. In 1971, appointed as a police cadet for the Los Angeles Police Department, assigned to Jail Division. April 1973, appointed as a recruit police officer for the Los Angeles Police Department. Commenced with a long and distinguished career with assignments in Southwest Division, Hollenbeck Division, Communication Division, Rampart Division, Central Patrol Division, and his final and most distinguished assignment Sergeant at Arms at the LA City Council. Received numerous commendations throughout his career, expressing praise and gratitude for his outstanding police work, his attention to duty, investigative abilities, keen observations, teamwork, superior tactics, and his impressive performance under stress. 35 years, I'm sure there was some stress packed in there somewhere. Officer Lopez, throughout his life, has demonstrated to be a kind, sincere, personable human being. Honest, fairness has made him an absolute asset to the Los Angeles Police Department. He will be missed. During retirement, he will be cruising this nation on his Gold Wing motorcycle in between his ocean cruises with his wife of 36 years, Bernice. Bernice and Joe married 36 years. He recently got in shape and he's lost over 70 pounds. And he's preparing for all those cruises he'll be taking with Bernice. We'd like to commend and congratulate you, Officer Lopez, for his many years of service and valuable contribution to the Los Angeles Police Department. Extend to you and your wonderful family health, happiness, and enjoyable, successful retirement. To you, Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, thank you. Dennis and I, obviously, Mr. Parks, all have a great affinity for the Los Angeles Police Department and the men and women that serve it. Steve,
Steve's not retired yet. Steve's over in the shadows. Steve, get over there.
Joe just was a great asset to us around here, and there was stress because we have a lot of crazy people here, and they have to keep them under control. So he did have a lot of stress. But anyone who works in this department, works in this job, has a lot of stress in their life. You've earned what you're going to do. You're going to go out and cruise. What a great way to spend the rest of your life. You get to have your wife gets to have you back. It's a great thing to have. It's a great, and Mr. Zhang will always point out, the pension's a great thing to have. It's worth living for. So just for your service to the people of L.A., to this council in particular, we honor you today, and thank you for all your years of service. Wish you the best. We hope you come back from time to time, and then take Steve with you, because he's leaving pretty soon, too. So anyway, thanks for everything. It's been a pleasure working with you. God bless you. Thank you.
And Mr. LaBonge, Councilmember LaBonge.
Hey, Sergeant, thank you for always being so kind and gentle with the public, and always helping those who needed the direction necessary here. To be a Sergeant of Arms, there's a long history of people from Central area, Central Division, who've served us well, also from some most memorable times and tales over the years. I'm happy for you and your wife. I'm proud. Mike Hernandez told me you guys went to school at Nightingale together. He went to Franklin, you went to Lincoln, and I went to Marshall, so we're all Northern Leaguers. Congratulations to you on a great career and a happy, happy retirement.
Councilmember Huizar.
Tom, what's the mascot for Lincoln High School?
That's it, Tigers.
Tigers, all right. He knows all the mascots from us. Joe, congratulations, and thank you so much. I've always noticed your attentiveness to the job you're doing here and the way you treated folks, both on this side of the aisle and the public. So thank you and congratulations. Well-deserved retirement. It's great to see an East Side guy do well and serve the city so well, too. And thank you to your wife as well, who we know that be working for the city, particularly for LAPD, it's a team effort from the family. So thank you so much and congratulations. It's great to see all your colleagues here as well. That shows how much love and respect we have for you. Congratulations, Joe.
So you got your colleagues with you. Sometimes the captain wonders, what are you doing? You're in city council, managing city council. So Joe, congratulations. I know you've done some motorcycle rides with us. Mike, behind you, our assistant city attorney who's ridden with us before. You'll be able to ride and have a good time. So to you and your family, the best to you in the years of retirement, and we do have cake and celebration in the back room. So congratulations. Mr. Garcetti.
I wanted to thank you for what you did as well for us. It is all men and women who put on the uniform have a very tough job. This is a very particular job, and you really protect the people's ability to speak as well as make sure that the business of the city gets done. And in honor of that, I know that Michael Hunt, Matt Dowd, and Zuma Dog are going to be on your first cruise, and they just wanted me to let you know that they're looking forward to relaxing with you. It'll not be as much shouting as usual, but they're looking forward, and they appreciate all you've done to protect their right to free speech. Thank you, and congratulations.
That's why Joe's going to do a little motorcycle riding first before he does that.
That's it.
So with that, congratulations once again to you and your wife, your family. You've done well. As Councilmember Smith has said, all you got to do now is enjoy that retirement and enjoy happy years ahead. So God bless you and your family. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk? Oh, I'm sorry. Joe. You know, he doesn't speak much. Joe doesn't speak much. Joe, I'm sorry. Go ahead. It's your turn. Joe, he doesn't speak much, but there you go.
I don't speak much. All I want to say is, hey, thank you very much for this honor. I appreciate it, and it's been a pleasure working for you.
There you go. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
Council has motions for posting and referral,
Post and refer, please.
and that clears the desk.
Any announcements? Colleagues, any announcements? Mr. Wesson, announcements.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President and members. I want to announce that this Saturday, November 7th at 10 a.m., there will be a softball game. The city attorney's office, it's my understanding, has challenged GSD police, the mayor's staff, and the city clerk's office. It will be at Rancho Cienega Park, located at 5001 Rodeo Road in Los Angeles. Again, the city attorney staff versus the rest of the city of L.A.
Very, very well. Any other announcements, colleagues?
No.
Announce that tonight there will be a community forum for LAPD.
Really?
And I think our new chief is going to be there, Chief Beck. That's going to be at the Van Nuys City Hall, 6 to 7:30. That's at 14410 Sylvan Street in Van Nuys. Come meet the new chief designate from the Los Angeles Police Department, Chief Charlie Beck. And with that, colleagues, adjourning motions. Mr. Weezer, adjourning motions. All please stand. Stand for adjourning motions.
Thank you, Mr. President. And colleagues, I ask that we adjourn in memory of an El Sereno resident, Manuel Palacio, or Pops, as he was better known to most. He was born in Tucson, Arizona, and moved to Los Angeles in 1930 at the age of 8. Mr. Palacio attended Belmont High, where he excelled at gymnastics and football. He earned an athletic scholarship to the University of San Francisco, but then World War II began. He enlisted, but in the interim was allowed to finish classes at LA City College and work in Lockheed's Burbank machine shop. Mr. Palacio served in the U.S. Navy as a Botwin's mate, landing troops in Okinawa, Solomon Islands, the Philippines, and other islands in the Asiatic Pacific area. Immediately after the war, Manuel coached kids at Echo Park Playground. He also played semi-pro football into the mid-1950s. Mr. Palacio also helped start El Sereno Pop Warner Football. In addition to many community volunteer efforts, his generosity included building the grotto at All Saints Church in El Sereno, helping to build a patio at Sacred Heart High School in Lincoln Heights, and providing improvements to LA Children's Hospital and the infirmary in Lourdes, France. He also began to help out Cathedral High School, where his brother-in-law attended. Throughout his 50-plus years at Cathedral High School, he paid the tuition for many boys, bought athletic shoes and other equipment for the various teams, especially for students whose families couldn't afford the extra expense, and that was his love and delight. He was well known as Mr. Pops until he passed away October 27th at the age of 87. Mr. Palacio continued to support and delight in the athletic and educational successes of all the Cathedral boys. The Cathedral alumni are currently establishing a Pops Palacio Athletic Fund in his honor. He is survived by his 4 sons and 3 daughters, Rita, Gil, Rosie, Manuel Jr., Jose, Maria, Elaine, Paul, and several grandchildren and great-grandchildren. The East Side community and certainly Cathedral High School will sorely miss him.
Thank you very much. Mr. Labange.
I just want to suggest you put Mr. Reyes' name on that, as well as all members for such a great citizen.
Good. Mr. Reyes is an alumni of Cathedral High School, and
We'll second that.
Thank you.
And we'll get the mayor to sign that because of the time he was at Cathedral as well. Thank you. Anybody else for adjourning motions? Yes, Mr. Wesson.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I'd like to adjourn today in the memory of Alvin Burton, who passed away on October 30th, this past Friday. Mr. Burton has always been active in the community. He was a member of one of our neighborhood councils. He moved here from Louisiana in 1925. He's attended the Morning Star Missionary Baptist Church, He served in the Air Force. He had a long career with the post office, but he became known for his, he was a photographer, and he was the unofficial CRA photographer for the district that I represent. He's survived by his sisters, one brother, and one brother-in-law, the Reverend Bobby Kane. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other adjourning motions, colleagues? Now, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll, and we'll be in session.